She likes being picked up on chorus days. Otherwise,
Mr. President.
She walks across with her sister and brother, but she's in chorus, so we stop, we pick her up, and then we go. That's hysterical. Yeah.
Thank you, and good evening. Welcome, everyone. This is our regular scheduled meeting for the ROSSMOOR Community Service District Board. Tonight is December 13, 2011. Mr. May we have the roll call?
Director Kahlert?
Here.
Director Casey?
Here.
Director Rips?
Here.
Director Maynard?
Here.
President Coletta?
Here. Would you please join us as we stand to pledge our allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There are no presentations this evening, but I'm going to make a recommendation to the board. Given the attendance this evening, the change I would propose to the order of things this evening, I would propose, if there's a consensus by this board, to take item D3, which is the General Manager's Report on Governments, and move that in place of D1. And then lastly, the citizens' request, which is found in H2, the developments at shops at ROSSMOOR, we would move that up to the position of D2 and then take the following order as already itemized in our posted agenda in the normal order. Do we agree, or yes?
Sounds good.
Anyone opposed?
I think it's a good idea.
Good.
All right, seems like we're all in agreement. But also at this time, we're going to have public forum, and this is where the community has an opportunity to address the Board of Directors on any subject within our jurisdiction. However, inasmuch as we'll be paying attention and taking in what you say, there may be items that may be referred to staff for later action at the discretion of the board, and obviously no action will be taken this evening. So if anyone would like to come up, do know that, as I stated, we're going to take the issue of governance early in a moment. And if that's what you choose to address, maybe you want to hold your questions until we make that presentation or have that presentation made. But if it's something else, please come forward, state your first and last name, and we're glad to hear from you.
Michelle Fieldson, Pemberton. I just wanted to briefly address a couple issues from last month that I didn't have a chance to address. I'll make it very brief. I know everybody's here on some other issues. But as it relates to the LAGSL and the MOU, there were a couple questions that were raised that I don't feel were perhaps enough information was given. One of the issues was, why was Rush Park upgraded, the field at Rush Park, and it was stated that it was to offload some of the T-ball games that were being played in the middle of ROSSMOOR Park. And in fact, that wasn't the case. There had been no T-ball games played at ROSSMOOR Park since 2006. As the item was put before the board, it was intended for the 6 to 8-year-old category, intended to better facilitate a reduction of games at ROSSMOOR Park. So that was the intent in upgrading Rush Park, the field there. And LAGSL's words were that it was unplayable. And Mr. Tabawada said that they left the design up to the company that did it, assuming that they had expertise in that area. But I would just like to say that there never were any 8 and under games played at Rush Park. In fact, 6 and under continued to play at ROSSMOOR Park. There were a smidgen of T-ball games played on Saturday at Rush Park, but at best token. There was no snack stand open, although RCSD offered that. It was denied by the league because they said that it was too inconvenient to have snack stands at 2 locations. And obviously there's plenty of inconvenience to go around. But ultimately, I would just like to say that at ROSSMOOR Park, there were 231 games played, and that was played, not scheduled, counting all of the rainouts. And there were 18 games played at Rush. So I think that you can understand the need for the additional field at Rush. Backstop was mentioned by Director Kahlert. So I'm just hoping that the Capital Improvement Committee will really take into account the additional information that's given. Obviously, the backstop will have to be hired so that balls don't go into the neighbors' yards like they do ours now. I'm just requesting that appropriate information be getting from the community. And Director Maynard, you had mentioned about the trash and why that was in there. And that was originally because we used to have just the bent metal trash cans. Some of them did not have lids even, and so the crows would go into the trash can and dump all the trash on our lawn. It took a couple years, but we got the cement trash cans, and that's pretty much not been an issue, and the league has been very good about picking up the trash. But the main thing is I just wanted to be sure that and may I ask who is on the Capital Improvement Committee?
Mr.
Okay.
Casey and myself.
So I just want to be sure that the committee gets the appropriate information before decision is made on the improvement at Rush Park. Thank you.
Good evening. Name's Ken Brown.
Good evening, sir.
The RCSD directors continue to expend district funds in their effort to get latent powers. We don't know how much has been spent, but consultants and lawyers are piling up like cordwood. At the same time, they continue to demonstrate the reasons why latent powers should be denied. The recent memorandum of understanding on LAGSL use of ROSSMOOR parks is a good example. While the ROSSMOOR Park neighbors are the primary victims of the board's actions, ROSSMOOR as a whole suffers from the board's actions on the parks. When prospective homebuyers in ROSSMOOR encounter the situation around ROSSMOOR Park on a Saturday and leave, never to return to ROSSMOOR, the entire community suffers from the resulting reduced home values. The primary effect of the MOU is to expand the LAGSL monopoly on park use into Rush Park. The resident representatives may have signed the MOU in hope that the expansion to Rush Park would ease the situation around ROSSMOOR Park. It won't. It will just recreate the problem for their Rush Park neighbors. The MOU also commits us to fix the Rush Park field to LAGSL desires. We recently paid $30,000 to upgrade the Rush Park backstop. Tonight's list of proposed capital improvements includes another $25,000 to change the dirt in the Rush Park field for the LAGSL. Note that the RCSD director negotiating the OMU, Director Rips, was a director of the LAGSL at the time of his appointment to the RCSD board. Yes, I said appointment. 4 of the 5 directors were appointed, not elected. Note that Director Kahlert was also a director of the LAGSL at the time of his appointment. Repeated requests from residents to make the MOU available during negotiation were ignored by the board. Only 3 of the immediate neighbors reviewed and signed the MOU. The RSD directors, in fairness to the residents, should rescind the MOU and start fresh with real resident visibility and involvement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just say I was appointed.
My name is Brenda Gorman. I wanted to just make a comment on the girls' softball at the field. We've lived here since 1970, and girls' softball has been played at that park when it was dirt. There was nothing on there but dirt. And it's always been a park. It was designated as a school site. And I just want to say it's great. I have 2 granddaughters that play in that league. It is wonderful to see. It's nice to see nice, clean play. And anything that this community can do to support play around there is fine. All of the houses and the homeowners that were there, though that girls softball played there prior to them living there, with the exception of maybe there are some, original owners, and they knew it was there too. So I want to just say from the other side, it's a great sport, and it's great fun to see these little kids play.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Ed Beckwith. I support 100% what Brenda said. If there are prospective homeowners that drive and are looking at prospective property around Rossmoor Park, and it's their decision not to live there because there's active youth activities there, then our community is better off if those people do not live here, because this is what our community is about. Thank you very much.
I second what he said. My name is Angela Epstein, and I'm a resident of Rossmoor. I have lived in Rossmoor for almost 11 years. I live on Oak Knoll Drive at 3262. I need the tree that is in front of our house, that is a mature tree, removed. I watched a lady walking her dog, tripping on the pods, and she almost fell. Now, I do have video cameras that I have installed in my home, so I will start making sure that I have a recording of people walking by. It is very dangerous. These pods accumulate on top of each other, and they make clumps. And in the dark, you can't see them. It is very dangerous. It's a hazard. The tree is dropping pods on top of our cars and removing the paint. And my husband was here at the last meeting requesting the tree be removed and was told, sorry, this is not our policy. And I'm asking you to reconsider your policy on this, because I think this is an exception. I would hate for an elderly woman walking her dog in the evening, it gets dark now at 4:30, to trip and fall. That's very dangerous. Not only do I not want to have to repaint my car every so often. So I urge you to reconsider your decision.
Thank you, Ms. Epstein.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take that as a sign that no one else wants to speak during public forum and you're anxious to get to the rest of the agenda. Now we'll move to the reports to the board. We've moved up D3. Mr. Talbot, would you like to start us off?
Mr. President, members of the board, there's public that's standing at the rear of this room here. There's chairs up front and to my right. If people want to take a seat, there's certainly an opportunity there for you to sit and be comfortable.
There are about 8 chairs up here. Come on up. There's also some on the other side of the auditorium up front as well. A couple of chairs there. Please, come on up. There's plenty of room to sit down. Sir, would you like to sit down? There's chairs. No? Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the board, monthly you receive a report on governance from your general manager, and tonight is no exception. I will read from your agenda item D3 because I want to be sure to get on the record exactly what it is that is in front of the board this evening. At your board meeting in November, you received a report from the general manager regarding a shared services case study dated June 18, 2011, undertaken on behalf of OC LAFCO. The study examined potential cost savings by consolidation of Rossmoor with Los Alamitos and Seal Beach. The study was critiqued by the general manager, who reported that there were findings based on assumptions, extrapolations, and in some cases inaccurate data, some of which was taken from previous documents such as the 2008 Comprehensive Fiscal Analysis relating to incorporation. At your special board meeting on October 25th, you authorized the general manager to engage the services of Harvey M. Rose, LLC, a highly regarded accounting firm capable of forensic accounting. The engagement at that time was limited to the analysis of the case study as it related to the comparative data between Rossmoor and the county. The analysis, which is attached, and there are several copies in the back table back there, and it's on our website. The analysis which is attached clearly indicates that the case study contains data which is flawed in many respects. Therefore, any conclusions in the report are of little value to the district in its efforts to obtain credible and useful information relating to the future governance of Rossmoor. It also seriously calls into question the validity of any data produced by the county or LAFCO. Most glaring is Table 2 of the case study, which depicts the county's deficit for providing services to Rossmoor no longer being $600,000, but rather $124,000. The Rose analysis, however, calculates in Table 3 that by using the auditor-controller's own data, the actual cost of providing services to Rossmoor is a positive $317,440, thus making Rossmoor a donor island and not a drain on the county. Also attached in your report is a letter from Board President Alfred Coletta to Supervisor Commissioner Morlock, once more asking for data which reports his statements regarding A, Rossmoor is a financial drain on the county, B, the assumption of additional latent powers by Rossmoor don't pencil out, and C, that the annexation by Los Alamitos of the Rossmoor Shopping Center is good governance. The letter is a follow-up to a previous letter sent October 6, 2011, which has yet to be replied to. All that the district has received is a letter from Ms. Carolyn Emery, Assistant Executive Officer, transmitting LAFCO's case study on the creation of a super city, which is not on point with any of our requests for data. The analysis of the case study has already been discussed. More recently, the Los Alamitos City Council at their December 5th meeting backed away from commissioning a citizen survey to determine, among other things, receptivity to the annexation of Rossmoor, and more particularly, annexation of the business district at the northeast corner of Rossmoor. In doing so, the Los Alamitos City Council made statements that annexation of any Rossmoor territory is not a feasible option for their city. Tonight, Mr. President, members of the board, you have with us Mr. Fred Brousseau, a principal with the company of Harvey Rose Associates, LLC, who did an analysis of the case study and is here this evening to present that report to you and to the public. And with your permission, Mr. President, I'd ask Mr. Brousseau to come to the podium and make his presentation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brousseau, for being available this evening.
All right. President Coletta and members of the board, my name is Fred Brousseau. I'm a principal with Harvey M. Rose Associates and conducted the critique of the consolidation case study. Before I start, I just want to say briefly a word about our firm. Harvey M. Rose Associates is a public sector consulting firm. We've been in business since 1978 and primarily work for local government jurisdictions in California. So we've served as the contract budget analyst for the City and County of San Francisco since 1978, the Santa Clara County management auditor since 1981 on an ongoing basis, and then we work for other jurisdictions throughout the state, such as LA County, Orange County, the City of LA, on a project-by-project basis. The primary scope of our work is financial analysis and management and operational performance audits. So with that, I'll just briefly describe the case study. It was submitted to the Orange County Local Agency Formation Commission, LAFCO, in June of 2011. And it identified savings that would occur through the consolidation of the cities of Los Alamitos, Seal Beach, and the Rossmoor Community Services District. County of Orange savings are also addressed, and I'll be talking about those specifically since that was a point of interest for your board. The case study was provided to the district, as we understand it, in response to a request for financial data on county costs and revenues attributable to Rossmoor. And while there are some of those numbers contained in the study, the scope of the case study was broader than that and covers more than just that. The objective of our critique then was to assess the financial data in the case study and particularly regarding the County of Orange revenues and expenditures that are presented in the case study. Our methods were to review that document. We also reviewed key documents from the subject jurisdiction, so that was the two cities, Los Alamitos and Seal Beach, and of course your district, as well as the budget and financial reports for the County of Orange. We also obtained salary schedules for the jurisdictions to assess the salary and benefit information contained in the case study. And finally, we reviewed the comprehensive fiscal analysis that was prepared in 2008 to assess the incorporation of ROSSMOOR. That was done a couple of years ago. The purpose of the case study, and this is now talking about just the consolidation case study, was to identify where consolidation could eliminate duplication of service or staffing, as well as identifying potential economies of scale that would result from the consolidation of the three jurisdictions. And it was to be used by agencies to guide decisions about sharing services or staff, or determine if further detailed studies and discussions were warranted. The assumption stated in the case study was that only administrative reductions were considered. So the savings that would be generated, according to the case study, would not result from any reduction in service levels, but only from reducing duplicate department heads and administrative costs. The results of the case study, the study showed that there would be $2.7 million in cost reductions and revenue increases. And that was comprised of a number of different components. One was the elimination of 16 positions. That was the bulk of it, $1.7 million in salaries and benefits. Eliminating all the costs for the Los Alamitos City Council. Reducing contract city attorney costs of the three jurisdictions by close to 24%. And the details are shown in the table there. That amounted to $95,350. And eliminating all of the administration costs for your district. So that was $306,680. And that was resulted in total cost reductions of about $2.1 million. In addition, the study concluded that that this new city, this consolidated city, would see an increase in motor vehicle license fees because that source of revenue is based on population, and the population of the city would be larger because it would include the 20,000 or so residents of ROSSMOOR in the new city. Regarding the County of Orange and the costs and revenues identified in the case study, this is a summary of what was presented in that document. The study concluded that the revenues generated by ROSSMOOR were $1,337,000 in a year, as opposed to estimated expenditures for services provided to the county of $1,461,000. That's largely for law enforcement costs, but also includes other county services provided. That resulted then in a assumed net cost to the county of $124,000 for services provided. So a few points on that. The source of the county revenues and expenditures are not clearly presented in the case study. They do not tie back to either the county budget or the county comprehensive annual financial report, the documents we reviewed, because costs are not broken out by areas such as ROSSMOOR. You see the sheriff's budget, but there's no breakout for costs of services for just this jurisdiction. And there was no other source listed in the case study document. So it's unclear where the numbers came from or what assumptions were made to come up with the costs that are attributable just to ROSSMOOR. A few things were missing. There were no county expenditures assumed for animal control services, for which the county is responsible for your district. It's probably not a large cost, but it was a cost that should have been included in a comprehensive assessment. And no reduction was shown after the consolidation was to take place for county costs for street and highway improvements. So that's now a cost incurred by the county for the district that would go away under consolidation, but those costs were not presented, or the reduction in costs that would occur were not presented. There's a $441,000 difference between the property tax revenue that is generated by ROSSMOOR as reported in the comprehensive fiscal analysis in 2008. So this again was your incorporation analysis. And that amount, which is shown in the table here on the right under CFA, property tax revenue, is $771,440 in 2008. The case study, however, reports that property tax revenue generated by ROSSMOOR that the county collects is only $330,000. So the discrepancy is not explained. The 2008 source certainly seemed reliable. It came from the county auditor controller. It's in the document. It is detailed in terms of the tax rate areas that are in the district and the property tax revenues generated by them, and then it shows the actual county receipts. And while there has certainly been some drop in property tax values since 2008, the extent of the drop and the discrepancy between the two numbers shown there, the 771,400 and the 330,000, is not likely attributable to a decline in property values. So the difference when this is then filtered through, and you can see it on the table here, if you add in the other general fund revenues and then you get a total that's different, of course, between the two studies. And then the costs of the services, just leaving the costs as they are presented in the case study the same, you end up with a surplus of $317,440 using the property tax numbers that were provided in 2008 by the auditor controller. The case study with the lower numbers, of course, shows a deficit to the county or a net cost for the services provided. Another point on the county figures that are presented in the case study is that potential savings are shown from these position eliminations that I mentioned, but there's no discussion of county revenues to be transferred. So in a process that involves an annexation or a consolidation, as is being discussed in the case study, state law would require some negotiation of the cost of services transferred from the county to the new city, and some of the property tax revenue would have to be provided to the new jurisdiction through a property tax sharing agreement. The methods for the case study estimates of other county revenue are not disclosed. So there's other revenue shown, such as fees that the county collects from ROSSMOOR. Those are not detailed, and the assumptions used in them are not detailed in the case study document. On the cost side, the biggest cost, as I mentioned, for the county in terms of providing services to ROSSMOOR is for law enforcement, and that's the county sheriff. The costs estimated in the study are $1,235,000, and this can actually be traced back to the 2008 ROSSMOOR Incorporation Comprehensive Fiscal Analysis. That number is presented in that document. But what was done for the case study, the author increased that amount by 4% a year to bring it up to current times. There's no statement in the document as to why a 4% increase was used or what the basis of that was. And in fact, in looking at the sheriff's budget for those same years from 2000, it went back to 06, 07 through fiscal year 2010-11, the sheriff's budget actually decreased by 7.3% during that period. So instead of the 4% increase per year, the sheriff's costs were going down. And applying that number, and there can be different factors, of course, involved in what the actual costs are, but just using the difference there in terms of a 4% increase per year versus the 7.3% decrease over 4 years, the costs, as presented in the case study, of $1,235,000 would be reduced to $977,552 by applying the overall decrease in the sheriff's budget to the costs for ROSSMOOR. And the difference is $257,448. Other case study issues, just more broadly about the study, the consolidated general fund financial position, that is the position of the two cities and your district, are presented in the introduction to the report, and it shows a negative situation, whereas the expenditures are higher than the revenues by $85,555. Not a huge amount, but the math was actually incorrect. It should have been a positive number, should have been $85,550 surplus rather than a deficit. The statement early on in the report that I mentioned that only administrative costs are reduced, that is duplicate department heads and so forth, are eliminated, and those explain the reduction in cost, is not accurate. Only 7 of the 16 positions that are assumed to be deleted are department heads. The other 9 are administrative or line staff. So you have administrative assistants, staff planners, police captains, police community services officers included in the reductions, but there is no explanation as to why those positions were selected or what impact they would have on service. So statements are made in the case study that there would be no reduction in service levels to this new jurisdiction, but removing some of the line staff, unless the author knows that there are certain inefficiencies now in the system or staff that have excess capacity, it's not clear why those positions could be eliminated and why they wouldn't have any impact on services. And the last point on there is just essentially saying that what is the impact of deleting 9 administrative and line staff positions. Not all the estimated savings to the county, so the assumption is that a number of costs would go away for the county, such as all the costs of law enforcement, and then the county would thus realize this savings, the $1.4 million, I believe it was. The problem with that concept is many of the costs assumed are ongoing built-in costs. So your costs for law enforcement services, you're certainly, when they make that calculation, that includes the deputies who are patrolling ROSSMOOR and surrounding communities, but it also includes part of sheriff's overhead. So that would include supervising sergeants or lieutenants or administrative support staff in the department. And those costs are simply allocated to the cost of providing services to ROSSMOOR, but they're not going to go away. And if the sheriff's department no longer provided patrol services to ROSSMOOR, they would still have the cost of those support staff. They wouldn't be eliminating a small percentage of those positions. Deletion of all of the Los Alamitos City Council costs and all of the ROSSMOOR Community Services District administration costs was, in our opinion, a stretch in that it reduces the costs of the city council members and what they're paid in Los Alamitos, which makes sense. You wouldn't need 3 city councils, but it also eliminated all the administrative support costs, postage, office support costs, supplies, and so forth. Did the same for the ROSSMOOR Community Services District costs. Our conclusion is that in a new, larger city, there would be some increased administrative costs. While there would only be 1 city council, that would not be sufficient to simply maintain Seal Beach's costs, which were the ones that were left for administrative support, and that additional costs would be incurred to run the new, larger city council. There's no reference in the case study to any one-time or ongoing costs, and when you think about it, there would be a lot of startup costs for consolidating the 3 jurisdictions. You all have obviously different laws governing you now, 2 charters, municipal laws, you have different general plans, you have different information systems, you have different personnel systems. All of that would need to be consolidated, and that would not come without costs. There would have to be either a lot of staff time spent revising all these documents, laws, and so forth, or outside services would have to be used to reconcile all of those and set up new systems. And then ongoing costs, there would be some additional service levels, as in the example of the city council, but for other departments as well. There would be an increased population, so we would not assume that the services could be provided without some increased costs. Though clearly you wouldn't need 3 police chiefs and you wouldn't need 3 city councils in such a consolidated jurisdiction. There are other costs that would be new and are not addressed in the case study. Part-time positions were not included in the case study either, and for the 3 jurisdictions, they make up just for the 2 cities, they make up 23% of the workforce. So we thought that was a significant oversight to keep those out and to try to assess what staffing would be needed in the new jurisdiction without including the part-time employees. So our conclusion after the review of these documents is that the case study does not provide your district with sufficient documented financial information pertaining to the County of Orange's revenues or expenditures that are attributable to ROSSMOOR. While there are numbers presented, the lack of documentation about how they were derived and some of the other questions I've raised leads us to that conclusion, that this is not information you could use to have a definitive word on what your costs are for county services. The methods of determining savings for the different departments, the consolidation of the different departments were not consistently employed or sufficiently explained in the document. And the costs associated with consolidation were not presented to give decision makers the full picture. So if this were to be considered, it's more than just the savings that would occur, which had some of their own problems, but in addition, decision makers would certainly need to see what the one-time and ongoing costs associated with the consolidation would be. That is my presentation. I'd be happy to respond to any questions.
Would the board like to ask questions now or allow the public to ask questions first and then we'll follow up? What's the preference?
Community?
I think we have a large audience, and if you indulge your audience, I think there's probably a few people who'd like to ask some questions. So if anyone would like to address the critique of the case study, now would be the time to take advantage of our forensic certified public accountant, Mr. Brousseau. Sure.
Good evening, distinguished directors of the ROSSMOOR Board and Manager Henry Taviota. I am Robert Labrador, 26-year resident of ROSSMOOR at 12825 Martha Ann Drive. As a lifelong career finance professional, I would say I consider myself as knowledgeable as anybody in number aggregation and analysis as probably anybody in this room, but maybe the exception of our speaker, Brousseau. But I just wanted to make the statement that he brought out two interesting things in his presentation, which goes to our contention about the issues we have with the county over the matter whether ROSSMOOR is a net contributor to the county or net user of revenue. He had two slides up there. I think they were entitled County of Orange Costs and Revenue Issues regarding the case study. And it was pointed out in the very first sentence of the first slide that the source, there was no definitive source documents for the revenue. And that's important because without a source document, we cannot verify the validity of the numbers that are being presented by LAFCO or the county. In the second page of that slide, it concluded that the method of determining the revenues or the estimates was not even disclosed. So again, the county is failing to provide us with the necessary documentation of their numbers. But it doesn't take excuse me, I don't mean to take up too much time, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that ROSSMOOR, if you've lived here any length of time, doesn't seem to make sense that we're a net user of funds because there's about 3,500 homes here, all paying property tax to the county through the state through Proposition 13. There's a clearly delineated method for how that's allocated to the county, then back to the community. Now, in the 50-plus years that ROSSMOOR has been around, if we were really a cost to the county, they would have been after this community a long time ago. But we've endured many decades without this issue until a particular a county supervisor seems to have made a case of this, but the same person seems to be the one that also seems to give us excuses why he cannot provide us the numbers. But when you look at the revenues just on the property tax, dismissing the DMV fees and building permit fees and other fees that are also generated by our community residents. under Prop 13 allocation, it has to far exceed what the Rossmoor is costing the county. Even if you take the figure that Mr. Brousseau presented for sheriff or the law enforcement of like $1.2 million, $1.3 million, you know that our property taxes far exceed that when you have 3,500 homes paying property taxes. So, and over time, certainly our costs have risen, but our property taxes have actually risen at a far faster rate because just looking at the history of the community, there's been plenty of renovation of homes, building of new homes. All of that is assessed at higher rates, so our tax revenue has definitely gone up at a precipitous rate, whereas also our costs have also gone up, but not at the same rate of increase as our revenue. So clearly, we seem to continue to be stonewalled by the county as to where are the figures. Give us some figures that we can analyze and verify, and stop pointing at Rossmoor as a net cost to the county, which we truly aren't. So that's my statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Labrador.
Ken Brown. This picking at the county's financial analysis is working around the main issue with the super city. What it would do is finally give the residents of Rossmoor a position to influence what goes on around us. Right now, we can't go to work or come home without driving through the mistakes created by the cities of Los Alamitos and Seal Beach. The super city, we could even be a dominant factor in the super city and be able to influence what happens around us. I think these little financial things work themselves out, but I think there are a lot of other considerations when we consider the super city concept. Thank you.
My name is Bernard Beskind. I've lived in Rossmoor for 33 years. If this was a war, I wouldn't tell you you're using the wrong weapons. I wouldn't tell you that you've got bad intelligence. I'd tell you you're fighting the wrong war. This is not a war of whose accountant has the sharpest pencil. It's a political war. And we need to grow up and start recognizing that and fighting it in some appropriate manner, rather than calling in a battery of consultants. The nation is in fiscal trouble. The state is in fiscal trouble. The county is in fiscal trouble. Our schools are in fiscal trouble. Our roads are in fiscal trouble. I don't know what it would take to make us wake up and realize we are the poor second cousin in the tattered clothes who nobody wants to invite to the birthday party. We need to fight this as what it is, a political problem. The islands in Orange County are a target, and we're one of them. And I don't think all the point and counterpoint about whose accountant is right is going to win this battle. I think we need to form alliances. We need to have the right people on our side. We need to understand what we want to be when we grow up and develop a strategy for achieving that. This has been going on now for, well, what, 5 years, 6 years? Actually, it's been going on since 1960 because I found records in my attic of the house that I bought that showed the campaign to incorporate Rossmoor and the petitions that had been signed at that point in time. So it's an old battle. It's just heated up because the environment that we're living in is ripe for it. And we're a great target. We have a great big CVS sign on our back. Really and truly, we need to stop this charade of point and counterpoint. I remember hearing early in my career, there are liars, there are damn liars, and there are statisticians. Well, I can tell you, every one of you knows what your paycheck looks like every week, and every one of you has a pretty good idea of what your expenses are. And I bet you could find an accountant who could change your taxes from owing the government to getting a refund. So the accountants can make the books look like almost anything the management wants it to look like, given some degree of conscience and some degree of skill. We need to stop picking on this. We need to get down and figure out who we need on our side, how to get them to our side, and get on with it. I would commend to you a book that I've just acquired from the library, written by, of all people, Harry Belafonte. And it describes in the book how he and Martin Luther King sat down and decided who did they need on their side to win the civil rights argument in this country. And they found out who the people were, and they set about and they targeted them, and they worked patiently. They went to find, they did their research to find out what it is those people wanted, and then figured out how to sell them on the idea that civil rights would help them achieve what they wanted to achieve, not what Martin Luther King wanted to achieve. Happened to be they were the same thing in the end. But my point is that you need political strategies far more than you need more numbers. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
President Coletta, directors. My name is Tony DeMarco. I live on Bostonian, and I wanted to come up, and you guys are, you asked for questions, so I wanted to ask, where did it go?
Mr. Broussard,
yeah,
right behind you.
Oh, how you doing? You know, I'm dealing with this not only in Orange County, but I'm also dealing with this in LA County, trying to incorporate East Los Angeles, where my store is. And my question to you is how do you, the counties don't seem not to account for expenses in these islands. How, in your beginning, you said you deal with a lot of these cities and counties. How do you get the numbers from an entity as large as a county for these islands? I mean, how do you go about, how do we go about getting the numbers from Morlock and Orange County? And even so, I can probably apply it to LA County and their supervisors when they tell you that, you know what, we don't do the math that way like cities do. So what's your recommendation for us to get these hard numbers to make this analysis? That's my question.
Mr. Broussard, if you don't mind.
In response to the question, most counties do not track their costs, or most county departments do not track their costs by specific geographic areas unless it's a part of their service. So most sheriffs, for example, have regions that they cover, but it isn't necessarily consistent with municipal boundaries or the boundaries of an unincorporated area. So you won't find it in place in most jurisdictions. To get the information, well, certainly when you go through the LAFCO process for incorporation or annexation, the counties then have to do it. And so it's possible they can go in and go through their numbers, excuse me, and come up with a set of assumptions that will determine those costs. For you to get them without that, it would require working with the county departments, requesting that information. And that was done in 2008 for your incorporation comprehensive fiscal analysis. So it appears that county departments did spend some time in trying to allocate their costs on that basis. So it can certainly be done. It's work for the county finance people. They may not just do it if someone asks them to. They may need some force, such as, you know, a LAFCO process is a legal proceeding that they have to comply with. So, other than that, I think you would go to your elected representative and ask them, and there probably has to be some reason that they would want to put the effort into getting you those numbers. So.
And one last thing to the last gentleman that was before me. Certainly, we are in a political environment with all these dealings, with the corner, with our corner in Rossmoor, with what we're going to hear about with Seal Beach. And at the end of the day, it just takes money. It takes, to be political, you have to spend money, you got to play the game, and we all know that, but we have a lot of energy in our community. It's just kind of focusing on what we want, and you have to, in the political environment locally in California and the federal environment too, you have to start, we have to get a political action committee together and start influencing people to get what we want, if that's how we want to do it. But that's how the game's played, as we all know. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Okay. How about the board? Does the board have any questions of Mr. Brousseau concerning his critique?
Nope. I have some comments relating to the case study and where we've gone. So, yeah, it'd be fine if you stand up here, but it's not necessarily directed specifically at you, but that would be helpful. It's been clear to me for some time, as I think it has to a lot of our citizens, that we've been shortchanged on data pertaining to our costs and revenue information. And the case study that you guys have done, which I think points out very clearly a lot of information that I think the county should have supplied, and I believe they did not do that. They had an agenda saying, we're looking for a super city concept, and in my mind, I believe they probably did some sort of a case study of their own, found that certain numbers weren't what they were looking for, and they chose the information that pointed to us as being a drain and said, therefore, we want to pursue a concept of, sounds like it would be great for a super city based on how the numbers that the limited numbers they presented to us penciled out. And they said, if we can't get that, why don't we try and see if we can't annex all or some properties in ROSSMOOR. So I believe that they actually knew this information from the very start, had their own agenda about where they wanted to go in terms of the direction of our community, not just us, but other unincorporated areas. And they said, okay, this is what we think of you guys, here's how we're going to proceed, and and that's it. So because of that, even though I'm satisfied that we're getting, up to now, good services, certainly from the sheriff, and the others, I believe, are quite good. But it's clear to me, based on, quotes, the fight we're up against with continually being bombasted, I think more so now than ever, that it's in our best interest, and I've heard other comments to some pro, some con, to the contrary, that this indicates to me that we should pursue the latent powers even more strongly than we have before. Because I don't think the information that you've presented to us, my gut feeling is the county will look at it and say something to the effect that, well, that's just one opinion. You know, we have our own information, we have our own numbers, and we draw our own conclusions. So that's basically it. I guess there's no question in there, just comments of my thoughts on the subject matter. So that's what I have.
Thank you, Mr. Casey. Well, I am certainly pleased with your efforts, your firm's efforts in analyzing the case study. I've felt, and I think I've heard stated here, and also in other forums, not so formal, that ROSSMOOR has been a donor, unincorporated area in the mind of a lot of people for a good number of years. I've been somewhat frustrated. I remitted a letter on October 6th and got the case study as a reply from Joyce Crosswife, the executive director of LAFCO, which is a non-response to the question. My question sought to get information. Now tonight you've explained that counties, how they function. It's hard for one to get their mind around that because you think, how do you run your business that way? How does a county run their businesses that way, their departments that way? But when forced to, they can come up with the numbers when there's a formal process, as you state. An example is an application for to LAFCO for latent powers, annexation, incorporation. There's a vehicle to stimulate the county to do some effort to gather the department managers together and say, let's go over our budgets over several years, how much you've spent, how much you didn't spend, where were the revenues coming from, where can we expect them to go, are they going to change, why are they going to change. Yet that's available, but yet for a transparent, objective request on our part to get some data, to get our hands around it, it wasn't forthcoming. So I understand in part, but I still have a difficult time understanding why the county is the aberration to municipalities. I don't quite understand that. Maybe that'll be enough time for another discussion, another place, and you can help me understand that. But then, secondly, what's frustrating for me is they were not transparent in detailing the assumptions that went into the case study, and you made that observation. Maybe I should revise the letter and state, provide us the assumptions that went into your support the data, and maybe we'll get a response, but I doubt it. But I can qualify it more narrowly, the request. And as such, to move forward just a bit, on November 29th, we remitted a second letter, and to this date, December 13th, 2011, there's been no response. But I still want to thank you for the enlightenment that you've given us this evening. And just for point of clarification, you made reference to the fact that this community is a donor community, and you come up with $317,440 as a number. The numbers that you relied upon to come to that aggregate positive, or in the black, if you will, those were based on audited numbers from the county?
Well, they're a combination, President Coletta. There's the numbers from the county from 2008 were the property tax revenue, and then I applied that, so a higher amount than was shown in the case study, to the costs in the case study, showing the impact of using those, what I believe are more reliable property tax estimates. So there are weaknesses in the expenditures presented in the case study too, but we just took it and said, okay, assuming their costs are right, if this property tax amount presented by the auditor controller is used, it changes the net effect.
And one last
expenditures were not audited numbers. So.
And then one last thing that you pointed out was with regards to the, I don't know if it's an assumption or, but the process that was employed for the law enforcement, the sheriff's department. You pointed out that there was a 4% increase over the course of several years that brought the department costs from $977,000 to $1.235 approximately.
Right, I believe it was 1.2, yes.
Okay, so basically that's about $230,000 extra.
Right, correct.
Would it be correct to take that increase as it relates to the law enforcement and add it back and to perhaps argue that ROSSMOOR is contributing more than $317,000?
I see what you're saying. Yes, you could do that. I think there's a lot of unknown assumptions behind those numbers. We do know, we can state, having looked at the county budget, that the sheriff's department budget has decreased during those 4 years. So we're making the point that the 4% assumed increase per year was not realistic. But to get to what you're describing, I think we need a little more information about what went behind their numbers. In other words, what you were just referring to, what were the assumptions used here and what variables are considered. But a 4% increase per year does not seem realistic when the department's budget overall is decreasing.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, members of the board, I think that we need to at least reach a conclusion that the results of this study certainly contribute to an argument to LAFCO regarding latent powers or any other fiscal matter, that the numbers are sufficiently accurate to be able to make a case that we can refute an assertion that latent powers don't pencil out. Unless the county can provide something to the contrary, I think we need to press that argument that, in fact, this study does lend itself to a whole new look, if not an acceptance of this study by the county as far more accurate than what has been produced by them. And so the value of this study to me is now we have something that we can go to LAFCO with and say, look, the district has engaged a credible firm to look at your numbers and has come to far different conclusions than have been espoused by you in the past. It's a dramatic shift, if you will. It's a sea change from originally making statements that ROSSMOOR spends $600,000 more than it generates, to a new assumption that if we were to take the $317,000 and the numbers reflective of the sheriff's cost, that we've gone from minus $600,000 to a positive $500,000. Let the county argue that that's not correct. Let them prove that that's not correct. And so that, I think, opens the door to a much more unbiased reception, if you will, at LAFCO, if we can make a case that, look, we've done a better job than you have with your own numbers. Let's have a dialogue.
Well, I certainly have one observation that I'm entertaining in mind right now that I hope that others recognize it, but for posterity's sake, the contractor that performed the case study is the same contractor that performed the consolidated or the comprehensive financial analysis in 2008. That's correct. GST Consulting, otherwise known as Gary Thompson. And my recollection in the research when I Googled Mr. Thompson, he's not a CPA. Correct. Or a forensic auditor. I think his history goes back to being a city manager and having developed the expertise, not to diminish the man and his expertise, but assuming, again, he received the data from the county, and as they say, it's only as good as what goes into it, what comes out of it. But he's the author of two studies, the CFA and the case study. The very latter document, the case study in 2011, impeaches the work product of 2008. Correct. We go from a $600,000 deficit to a $124,000 deficit. Now, that in of itself, if we didn't do anything else, suggests that there's something wrong. And so, and I'm not going to suggest this Mr. Thompson and be thrown under the bus, but if he's being given certain data and it changes, well, one would question the integrity of the process of those keep tracking of our revenues and expenditures. I mean, it's just an observation. You would have to question, is this prudent to remit your dollars continually and they're not able to account for it? I'm a taxpayer like everyone else. It's, I think, a fair statement. But then to suggest, and I have nothing to suggest that Mr. Brousseau sharpened his pencil to the point because of extraneous influences, but to come up and say we're now $317,000 on the conservative side on a positive contribution to the county, it's hard to reconcile. I don't know how it sits with everybody, but it's just bothersome to me. I've been living it for 13 years, and it's just hard to reconcile. So tonight, this is a report to us, and you want us to provide you some direction. Is there a motion on the board of anyone tonight that they feel that we need to make, or are we just going to receive this report? How does the board feel?
Do we?
No, we don't have to.
Yeah, I'm throwing this out. Do we make a motion to proceed with further discussion on assuming latent powers or X number of latent powers, or do we? I don't know. I don't know right now. I'm thinking out loud on this.
Well, I'm looking. I'm wondering what everyone's thinking here.
I mean, obviously, unless the county goes and refutes 4 years of financial data, which I find, I guess it could happen, you know, I mean, odder things have occurred in life, but then obviously we're a donor versus an expense. So if we're a donor, then it blows their argument out of the water that, we have to refuse any latent powers because that would be a net increase to your constituents versus you could actually provide better services to your community and save them money. And I don't know anybody in this audience that's going to argue about wanting to save money, get something that's going to improve their lives. So I don't know, do we make a motion to, yeah, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the first time that this analysis by the Harvey Rose Company has been openly discussed. I think that as a first step, you would want to take this information and remit it to the county and to LAFCO formally with a communication from this board to the Board of Supervisors and to the LAFCO Commission, and state to them that we've asked for the data. All that we've gotten is this report. This report was all that we could analyze. Our analysis indicates that your report was flawed, and we have forensically looked at it, given its limitations of what's presented to us, and we are of the opinion that in fact the reverse is true, and based on that, then we invite you to respond to us with why, what is your next step with regard to ROSSMOOR? I mean, certainly statements have been made publicly that things don't pencil out, et cetera, and so I think we need to at least present the information and have them respond to it. And if they don't, then we have to come back and decide what is our next step.
So would you put some type of a time frame on that? 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 minutes, a month? I mean, in terms of like a response, because we've seen from the county, they're really good at dragging their feet.
Well, even when your letters to Supervisor Morlock have included a time frame for response, there has been no response.
Yeah, he just ignores us, yeah.
But we have in the last letter at least CC'd the rest of the Board of Supervisors, so they know what our issue is if they read their mail. And if we were to transmit this report formally, I think we should wait for an echo and see if anything is forthcoming. And if not, then press the issue directly by going to see these people and saying, we've presented you with this information, we think it's credible, and we think that that you need to deal with ROSSMOOR in an objective, unbiased manner with regard to what we're trying to accomplish.
I have a little different take on that. We have asked over and over for data. As you said, no response.
That's to one supervisor.
Right. So we now have an independent voice, a voice of authority, who's actually showing that we're not a drain, but we are a donor. I think this news needs to be public. I think this should be submitted to the media.
It will be.
Then they probably will reply to us. So I think we need to take it out to them.
The press release is in the hands of the press as we speak.
You the man.
This will also be put up on our website as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So do we need to make a formal motion, let's say asking for a certain time frame for a response from the county in addition to of your publishing this information?
Well, as I said, the press release is going to have this information out for the public to consume. What I need from you is direction, if it's your desire for me to transmit this formally to the Board of Supervisors and to the LAFCO Commission.
I would like to make that motion that we prevent.
I just want to.
Oh, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that people understand that. I mean, we don't really have a quarrel. There is no quarrel going on with the county in terms of their desire to get out of the provisions for local municipal services. We think, and especially with this critique, that ROSSMOOR has shown that we have the proven ability to in a cost-effective manner to provide services, and I think that we are willing to take on additional services now that are being provided by the county. And I think that that's something that's important to understand, is that this is pretty clear showing that it's not just that we are not a donor, but that we actually provide services for our community in a cost-effective manner. And I think that we should move forward in whatever motion that we're going to make, that we're making a motion based on this assumption, that we can do this and we can do it well.
Please, panelists,
Sure.
you want to come up and state your name, please?
Hi, my name is Tina Nieto. I've been a Rossmoor resident for about 11 years. My question, and one of the things that I bring, that I'm a CFE, and I was also involved with the City of Los Angeles when we went through the consent decree, so public auditing is something that I know quite a bit about.
Question?
Yeah,
What is
the question for him is that, when reading what the introduction and purpose of the critique was, you stated in the critique
Excuse me,
that...
ma'am?
Yes.
What is a CFE?
Certified Fraud Examiner, which is very, it's a equivalency for people that do public audits and stuff, that in the public profession and government, this is a thing that we get, that we understand, that we know how to look at audits and stuff like that. So, my question is that in here you stated that, and I don't have an opinion on which way we should go, but in here the audit just showed that the initial audit was a flawed audit, correct, sir? Or, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm looking at Sue. I'm in the back, so I saw you from the back. It was.
Yeah, we've had some problems.
Mr. Brousseau, if we can get your comments on the microphone so it's get on tape.
We did find some problems with it.
And then my other question is that we're basing a lot on assumptions. I know that the Orange County, again, I come from a law enforcement background. I'm a captain with the LAPD. So I know that in 2008, when the county was looking at its budget stuff, we were at an increase, and over the last couple of years, the budget's been cut this year because we've cut staffing among all the large agencies, and so that might account for that extra money. So to make that, we're making a big assumption to say that there's that extra money, but that's with reduced services. So yeah, there probably is that extra money, but that's because of staffing, budget cuts, not buying cars, not buying equipment. I know the sheriff laid off people. My assumption is that that's where the savings came from.
The reductions in the county sheriff's department could have been from a number of sources, such as what you're describing. But whatever they were from, it means that the costs are less than what's presented in the case study.
Right, with reduced services.
Right. Well, and the reduced services are in the background because you're still getting the equivalent of 6 deputies, who are responsible for providing services here, and 24-hour-a-day service. But yes, there could be reductions in other costs and support services.
So I guess my recommendation to the board is that you wouldn't want to jump into that argument about the savings of money, but you should go based on this study that would be accepted by other auditors, that it's the first case study was a very flawed study as shown by the analysis that they did. So that would be my recommendation to the board. Thank you.
Thank you for the constructive comment. I don't know if you've completed your thought.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Casey, you were going to frame a motion?
Frame a motion.
Yeah, I'd like to see if I can do this. Frame the motion that we take the case study data that we've been presented with that shows a totally different slant on what's been shown previously, present it to the county, indicating that based on these case study results that we are capable of supplying our own services to the community, and to give them 30 days to respond in terms of how they will proceed in allowing us to go forward with our pursuit of our latent powers. Is that unclear?
I was good at the part where you were making a motion to give the information to the county. You lost me after that. Ron, do you want to rephrase it or no?
Yeah, you want to rephrase it? Otherwise, we've got to.
If you stop after giving the information to the county, that would be great. If not, nobody will second and we keep going.
I'd like to make a motion that we present the data from our case study.
From our analysis.
From our case study analysis.
That's it.
To the county and ask them to respond with their thoughts within 30 days.
Second.
Would you include in that motion, Director Casey, that it also be sent to the LAFCO Commission?
Yes, I would. Also to the LAFCO Commission.
I agree with that as well.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Brousseau, for traveling down here to Southern California. All right, now we're going to move to the citizen request concerning what is appearing to take place at the Rossmoor Shopping Center. Mr. Talbotto, you want to jump to H2?
Yes, sir. We received a request from Ms. Brenda Gorman to place this item on the agenda to discuss issues relating to the recent developments with new stores at the shops at Rossmoor, with a double left turn pocket at St. Cloud, ingress and egress out of that center, and also the issue of affordable housing being designated within the boundaries of that shops at Rossmoor. I had a conversation just prior to this meeting with Ms. Madeline Jakerl, who is the owner-developer of the shops at Rossmoor. And she said that she didn't understand why this issue of the affordable housing had surfaced in the way that it had, because to her knowledge, that issue has never been formally presented to her as the owner of that particular location. That there had been some discussions about any number of developments or uses of that development to better position it as a sales tax generating unit for the city of Seal Beach. But that she couldn't understand why there was this uproar over the affordable housing issue, since it had never been presented to her as a formal proposition from the city of Seal Beach. And I said to her, well, the information we've been working on comes from Councilmember Gary Miller of the city of Seal Beach, who has made us aware of his concerns regarding this affordable housing issue. And she said that, well, Mr. Gary Miller is not the council member representing this shopping center, that it's another member of this council that represents this area. And to that extent, obviously, what she said to me was that the only way that she would ever consent to affordable housing on this property would be through eminent domain. They would have to take it from her. Now, the property is for sale, and there is a sale the property is in fact being negotiated with another company for purchase. If that affordable housing issue was in fact on the table with Seal Beach, it would have to be disclosed to that new owner, and that new owner would have the same property rights as the current owner with the transfer of the property. I only indicate this so that people are at least aware that, to the best of my knowledge, that affordable housing issue is not on the table according to the owner of the property. It still remains to be seen what ultimate action Seal Beach will take with regard to that. With regard to the left turn pocket at St. Cloud, the RHA Traffic Committee asked on several occasions that the county undertake some measurements of traffic at that intersection. And in fact, the county, as I'm told, did make some measurements and came to a conclusion that St. Cloud was wide enough for that double lane turn pocket and presented no issues for the county. Ms. Jackroll also told me this evening that with regard to the Rite Aid store, which is right there at the corner, replacing the the Chevron gas station that was there, that they in fact did do internal traffic studies themselves, paid for and had traffic studies conducted, and that there was no marginal difference between the current traffic issues relating to that Rite Aid than were present with the Chevron gas station. Therefore, no mitigation was initiated. The main issue with the Rite Aid drugstore appears to be the egress from the, what do you call it, the drive-through for that drugstore, which exits onto St. Cloud above Yellowtail, which would involve a vehicle making a left turn to cross 2 lanes of traffic, a double yellow, and safely navigate to whatever lane they wanted going east. And that, in fact, has been a concern expressed to both myself and to others, that is a concern to the community with regard to safety. There are other issues with the types of stores that are being contemplated for that development. As you know, the In-N-Out Burger is under construction. That certainly will have some traffic issues relating to it. However, the city of Seal Beach, I think, is inclined to not want to look too closely at that because obviously they're seeing a generation of sales tax and other taxes relating to the stores that are being contemplated. That is as much as I know. I will tell you that Ms. Jackrell has, on occasion, invited representatives from the RHA and also myself to be apprised of developments that are going on. And the RHA has, I think, at least discussed it among themselves, and then I have forwarded that information to this board for your information. But since this board has really no authority or responsibility with regard to this issue, then tonight I think you present a forum for the public to be able to express their views, and hopefully they can decide for themselves what action they contemplate.
Okay. Ms. Gorman, you want to come up and give us your insight?
Thank you for the synopsis. Appreciate that. I want to, first of all, just address a couple things Henry said, and then I have a little statement I want to read. The person that told me that the center has 37 low-income housing sites designated at that shopping center is the person that is in charge of planning at the city of Seal Beach. It is approved as I understand it. They had a committee of 15 people that initially looked into sites. They looked at 17 sites in the city of Seal Beach. These units do not have to be all in one place, but they had a vote, and I guess they took people from each of the their designated districts, comprised a committee, and 15 people looked at it. The people up this way did not want it up here, but of course Seal Beach doesn't want it down there either. So the information I think that you have, maybe she wasn't informed by the city that that's what happened, but that's what I was told by him, that it is designated and there are 37 units there. It is an acre and a half that is going to be, and I was also told that they will probably never build it. Why you have to designate something you're never going to build, I don't know, but that's what I was told. So with that, let me read my statement, and if there's any questions. My name is Brenda Gorman. I've lived and worked in this community since 1970. I'm proud to say I raised my children in this community, and they are now raising their children, my grandchildren, here. I also have 2 nieces that were raised in this community that are also raising their children here. The reason I'm here is because I am strongly asking this board to join with the community and request an environmental impact study and a traffic study or whatever is needed to alleviate the problems with the expansion of the ROSSMOOR Center. There has not been a traffic study done in this area since 2003. That also came from the city. ROSSMOOR has always been a quiet, secure, family-friendly area with residents that take pride in living here. The expansion of the ROSSMOOR Center has already proven to be detrimental to the quality of life in our community. Traffic, congestion, and crime have already affected us, and the future will bring even more. The center was designed as a neighborhood center serving the immediate area. A market, a small hardware store, a bakery, a shoemaker, a doctor's office, etc. The present owners of the center have decided to expand the center with stores catering to the masses from out of the area. There is a Toys R Us and a Baby R Us going in where the market and hardware and doctor's office used to be. This building will be 47,000 square feet. There is a Rite Aid with a drive-through that will exit onto St. Cloud. As Henry said, it will be necessary to cross a double yellow line to get to Seal Beach Boulevard to exit. There is an In-N-Out Burger going in that same area. Stats is leaving, and we'll have 2 businesses occupying that building. I understand that one is a pet store, the other may be Staples. That makes 6 major tenants going into a center that is already busy. In addition to the stores, there is also 1.5 acres that is dedicated for low-income housing in the center. The City of Seal Beach has not upgraded their required low-income housing since 1990. There are 17 locations in the City of Seal Beach that were considered for this housing. Why in our backyard? The City of Seal Beach is installing a double turn lane from Seal Beach Boulevard onto St. Cloud directly into our community. The only other location on the boulevard that has 2 turn lanes is at Los Alamitos Boulevard and Catella, a major, major intersection. It seems strange that this double lane is needed since ROSSMOOR has not added one single home since 1960. Currently, there are about 6 entrances into the center from St. Cloud/Montecito. I believe the sole purpose of the double turn lane is to direct traffic through our community into the shopping center. The time is now for us to act on this and protect our community. We deserve to maintain our current quality of life, property values, and not have to worry about traffic inside ROSSMOOR. We need the support of you, the RCSD, and the ROSSMOOR Homeowners Association. What can we do to prevent this from having a detrimental impact on our community? And one of the things I've thought a long time about this, one of the things we could do is we could shut off the ingress and egress if they are truly not wanting that double lane for the purpose of directing the traffic that's going to be on the St. Cloud side into the shopping center, then let them shut that off. That's a county street. It isn't a Seal Beach street. I understood that maybe they had done some kind of a study. I don't know when it was done, but we deserve to have the peace and quiet that this community was developed for, and I know you're going to say it's out of your control to do anything on this, but you are community members. You were elected by us. And I think somehow you have to step out of that position and service. I am far more concerned about this than I am about our trash and the street cleaning and that. So again, I appreciate you putting it on the agenda, and I'll do anything I can do to help make this a little bit more. I don't expect them to stop construction, because they won't, but we have to find a way it won't impact us. Thank you.
Ms. Gorman? I want to ask a couple questions, and maybe the colleagues have a couple questions as well.
Okay.
What is the Homeowners Association's position been on this? Has there been a formal one? Has it been agendized? Have you asked them to put on their agenda?
You know, I have to tell you, I heard about, no, I haven't asked them at all. I heard about this, a little bit about it a couple of months ago. I did speak to a couple of people on the Homeowners Association. They didn't seem to have a concern about it. So it has just grown. So I don't know what their stand is. I don't know if they have a stand, to be honest with you.
Well, I think they do.
Okay.
I think they do personally. I think that they're responsible more so than us, predominantly, not us as a second tier, but they are the voice of property rights, in my view.
An informal voice. You're voted in.
No, I recognize the arguments you're making, but the fact of the matter, jurisdictionally, we don't do what they do.
No, I understand that.
So technically, they're the forum, they're the body to go to, but they have a meeting a week from tonight. I would encourage you or anyone else to pepper them with emails and say, let's get this agendized.
I sent emails. I don't know if anybody's here from the ROSSMOOR Homeowners Association. Are you it? Okay, because we blasted the emails.
The RHA is not holding a meeting in December.
No?
I'm not aware of a formal vote. We did have the traffic committee take a look at this, but I'm not aware of a formal vote on the development of the shopping center. So if there was, we would have to call a special meeting to do anything about it at this point. I'm not sure. Otherwise, it could be agendized for the January meeting.
Well, certainly some consideration, I'm sure, would be given in January. I'm sure there's an interest. I just hope that to be enough to get it to the attention of whoever composes their agenda.
The question is, at this stage, you know, with grading having started, what can be done?
Mr. Nickman, I appreciate your pragmatism.
Well, let me ask you a question. Why are we not having to allow a two-turn lane into Rossmoor? Why does that have to happen?
My view is, I'll speak just for myself,
I understand.
we don't have a seat at the table, we're not a municipality, such that because we don't have rodents and traffic control and the obligations for surveys for traffic, there isn't a person, or Mr. Tralbota couldn't go and say, well, you know, we have that jurisdictional responsibility here in our community. You've not discussed it with us informally. You've not projected what your plans are going to be for this intersection. We've now found out about this on the 11th hour. This seems maybe we should slow this down a bit and rethink this 3 times before we start cutting the street up. So in the absence of a voice like that, it's, you go to your commission hearings or their board hearings, council meetings, and it's like, well, we recognize who you are, but you have no real clout here, you have no voice. You know, just to backtrack a bit, I did attend the Seal Beach City Council Planning Commission meeting where the 5 city councilmen were present, and there were their planning commission staff, those board members. It was an informal setting, if you will, and there was members of the community there. And I spoke. I didn't say I was the president of the board or director of the board, but I just acknowledged who I was. I once resided in Seal Beach, which is true. I lived right over here in the condominiums, and I used to park my car, my 3rd vehicle, in front of someone's home because I had to. There was only 2 cars, and I made that real clear. That was myself, like others, that were impeding street sweeping on certain days. I tried not to, because at the time there was grace to park in the parking lot, directly behind the condominiums. But times have changed, and when we moved, you can no longer park your vehicle in the parking lot at the shopping center before it was remodeled. So good for us, the timing was right. We were moving into our home in Rossmoor, but not so good for those who remained there and had 3 cars. So I tried to get them to comprehend that I wasn't making things up. And they nodded their head and they looked at me, and I said, that's nice, but nothing, no real traction. And then the obvious thing to me is where Boeing has their facilities between the condominiums that are down the street by the power plant and the corner of PCH and Westminster Boulevard, it appeared to me, not an engineer, not a city planning person, that there might be an alternative site there because there really wasn't a lot of residential homes other than the condominiums down by the power plant. And I said, what about that site? That's a 2-lane highway in each direction. There isn't a shopping center people go in and out of other than if you go into that little corner there by the Standard Station, there's some shops, there's a coffee shop, maybe a restaurant, a cleaners. And it's like, we don't want to talk about that. There was silence.
Right.
And so other people mentioned it as well. Yeah, that's another site you could look at. Silence. And so they voted. Their minds were made up. That's where it was going to go. And poor Gary Miller, councilman for College Park East, who does have this area of the Rossmoor Shopping Center and the Target Center across the street, he didn't want it in his backyard. Right. But he's the guy on the north side of the freeway, right. And so he has less influence, considering that his brethren on the council, a majority of them don't want it down on the other side of the freeway. So it was planted as a placeholder because they're required to comply with certain regulations, which are not matters that I'm well versed in. I understand having to comply with state requirements, but the discussion about it, why there as opposed to other places, I didn't see that it got a lot of traction other than their minds were made up. And I'm all for making our presence known. You know, one of the things that happens at times where parties go to court and there's an appeal and there's the plaintiff and the defense and they appeal and then there's an opposition. Sometimes there's an amicus brief, they call it a friend of the court brief or a friend of the party brief. And you can say, yeah, we join in, and these are the various reasons, but you're not a real party in interest. You're a friend of a party.
Right.
And in as much as this board might agree, I'm speak for myself, to write a letter to who? And who's going to be the predominant party?
You know, I'm not asking you to write a letter. I would like to find out where we have some rights in this community. You know, we're looking at, we have 3,500 homes in here that existed prior to that shopping center. He tells me they didn't have to do an environmental impact study, nor did they have to do a traffic study because they were putting the same footprint back there. They're not putting the same footprint back there. That 47,000 square feet that they're building for a Toys R Us and a Babies R Us certainly is going to generate far more traffic than a neighborhood grocery store did.
No debate here.
So there has to be something. I mean, I don't know how Rossmoor can sit back and just decide we have no powers.
Well, I personally...
There has to be something we can do.
Personally, I would hope the Homeowners Association would pepper Mr. Moorlock as Chief of Staff with hope that it'll generate some interest with them, that it's worthy to take a look at. I mean, we could write a letter following their initial overture if they should decide to make that overture to the city's the county supervisor, but you know, I don't know what else we can do.
Do we have no control over that street, St. Cloud? Okay, but it's county, correct?
Yeah.
Why can't we go to the county? Why can we not go to the county and say, that is our primary road to come into this track? They're going to put, I mean, it sounds inconceivable to me that they are going to put a two-lane turn there in order to accommodate Rossmoor residents.
Ms. Gorman, I follow everything you're saying. I think there was a study one time by the county, or allegedly a study.
They did traffic counts, that's all they did.
That's all they did.
But is that with Toys R Us and?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either.
No, they only counted cars that were actually going through that intersection off of Seal Beach onto LaSalle to determine if there was sufficient lane width within the county road to accommodate two left turn lanes. That was their only objective. They didn't consider what was going on at the center. They had no interest in that. They only satisfied themselves that the project as engineered by Seal Beach was appropriately engineered based on the interface with St. Cloud, which they said, no problem.
I wonder if they would still go the expense of putting that in if we went to them and said we want those driveways closed off.
I think that's a great idea. I'm going to take a stab in the dark and say probably 95% of the people here in the audience, based on previous months of seeing 2 and 3 people sitting there, are here because of this issue. Just going crazy. And I share your exact concern, and I think what you're seeing on the board is that we're like searching for anything that we actually can really influence, short of issuing a letter. That's good, that we're going to say, here's our formal letter, and you know, I mean, there's the power of the people, and I think sometimes when a crowd like this shows up to a Seal Beach City Council meeting, or somebody starts firing off letters to John Moorlock or the county supervisors besides us, or something in addition to that, it gets a bigger impact.
Well, my feeling is if Mr. Coletta was not able to receive any kind of encouragement at the city, at a council meeting there, we're certainly not going to get any. They are not concerned about our feelings there and how they relate to that center. They are going to do that, they're going to build that center, and I don't feel that, you know, I don't want anybody to think that I'm trying to say stop the construction. That's not going to happen. But I do think that having the RCSD and the RHA on a letter, if nothing else, it just gives a look of support. I mean, it says you're behind the issue, and you certainly have some clout someplace.
Yeah, I don't think anybody here has like an issue with writing a letter saying we strongly oppose everything there, but at the end of the day, if the purpose is to get them to think and to move and to affect change, I don't want to set expectations that if we go write this letter that, oh, everything's going to be stopped, because
and I'm not asking you to stop, because I know that that's not a feasible thing. They're going to build out that center. But I think we could look to closing it off. We could look to saying, you want to put your double turn lane in, put it in at your main entrance at the of the center. Don't put it in our backyard. We don't want them coming in and out So take it out. I think, you know, we could, if you think that Seal Beach wants to be a good neighbor,
No.
then maybe, well, I don't either.
I don't think
Are
they
you
care.
suggesting shutting off the St. Cloud Street into Rossmoor?
No, I'm suggesting that they have about 6 entrances that will come give you egress and ingress from the center to St. Cloud and Montecito.
Close those.
And close those up. You know, you have the one, for instance, a good one that is easily recognizable is the one that goes into Farmers and Merchants Bank. All of that is down where this construction is going in.
Right.
And that would be, I mean, I'd be perfectly happy if they did that. They can put whatever they want in there. I just don't want their cars in our backyard. That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Nidickman, I know that in the past Rossmoor has garnered influence with letter writing campaigns. I think the freeway, there were some issues, but because maybe that's a tactic that we can use in this type of situation as well.
I mean, I would think, I mean, writing letters to Seal Beach, I have the same instinct you have that it's not going to do a lot of good. Writing letters to our county supervisor, if everybody in this room wrote a letter to Supervisor Morlock's office saying this is an intolerable situation and we want you to do something about it, that might have an effect. It would probably have a lot more of an effect than the RCSD writing a letter to Supervisor Morlock. I mean, he knows that you have no authority to do anything about it, so all you can do is write the letter, which is the same problem with writing the letter to Seal Beach. And so, you know, I think the folks from Predator Management, I didn't see them here, but I know they've been active. If you know, they start sending out glass and people start writing letters to the county supervisor, that could make a difference. That's not a legal track. But that's where the pressure is going to come from.
Right.
I don't know. My first thought about cutting off legal access points to the shopping center is that if I were the property owner, I would tell the city they had no right to do that. But, so, I mean, that's something that I wouldn't be surprised if they came back and said, sorry, we can't do that. That was in their approvals, and we can't change that now.
Could also be, I mean, it could end up being a safety issue as well, that you have a certain amount of
well, that's
access,
the thing. I know that the RHA has expressed real concern about the safety issues, and that was hence the traffic counts. I don't think the issue is done yet, but I think that the double left turn into St. Cloud, and I do that every day, is going to create traffic accidents. It's from people coming from Yellowtail trying to get across, from people stopping to go into the driveways. I just think it's a terrible situation, people trying to get around.
and people exiting the Rite Aid as well.
Huh?
And people exiting the Rite Aid as well.
And people entering and exiting the Rite Aid. I think that's going to be a terrible situation. I think the In-N-Out was a god-awful idea. Yeah. But, you know, because we are not a city and because the county doesn't really, isn't representing us very strongly right now, we don't have a voice. The city of Seal Beach doesn't care what we say. And they've made that point loud and clear. And RHA has gone to them about the situation with the St. Cloud traffic, and they have blown us off. So I would think popular outrage could do some good with the county. I doubt it's going to do any good with the city.
Well, yeah, Mr. Nemec, you raised a good point, and you've refreshed our memories. You know, the Predator Management team did quite a phenomenal job. I applaud them for what they did in getting some remediation, cleanup, the grates being placed where they should be placed, and we saw a decrease in the population of coyotes. If we could get a groundswell like that, I think that'd be tremendous. Maybe the Predator Management team, the RHA, the community itself would be just go on a writing campaign and email, call. The squeaky wheel, as they say, gets the grease. I wish we had more influence here. I don't think there's any opposition here to write a letter.
No. I think we should support whatever it is that you come up with and get behind that effort.
Yeah. And of course, I'm one member of the RHA.
Sure.
So.
Right. Of course.
Well, assuming it's going to get on the January agenda and there's going to be a discussion on this.
You know, You know, I have
Captain of the police force
I
yelling
have
out
to
to quiet.
honestly tell you, I have heard
Can
nothing.
you keep your voices down in fairness so that we can hear Ms. Gorman? Thank you.
I have honestly heard nothing from the RHA. I looked through the booklet that came, well, that was, I guess, the RCSD booklet. I have actually heard nothing from the RHA about this. This is probably, in my estimation, one of the, if not the most important thing that I have seen happen in this area. And I have seen nothing. I actually got my information by accident.
All right.
And we can do a writing, everybody can write in a letter. I mean, we can blast everybody and say, here's a sample of a letter. I mean, this is representation of people that came just by sending out a thing saying,
Well,
are
I
you
appreciate
aware?
that. Ms. Gorman, would you be inclined to
Yeah, you know what, Granger, I thought, yeah.
that
was my.
You've been nominated.
That was originally what my thought was, is let's put a petition together. But it's got to go to somebody that's going to listen.
I think there's some assistance that might come from the Homeowners Association. I'm sure Mr. Taboada will give you some names and email sites and contact
But
people.
I don't want you guys to step out of the picture. I hate to say that. I do not want to see you guys step out of the picture. I think we elected you guys. Whatever your role legally is, I don't know. I guess it is to handle all of these items. I know when I went to the ballot, I voted who I thought was going to represent the area. So my feeling would be is I would want you as involved as the Rossmoor Homeowners Association, and if it's going to be petitions. Again, unless you have any other questions, I really appreciate you putting this on the ballot, and I hope we can do something. And to be real honest with you, I know it's only a few weeks to January, but I'd want this to happen in the beginning of January. They only have a grading permit out on that Toys R Us, and when they're finished grading, they'll get their building permit. It would be nice to hold something over their head, and I would like the new buyers of that center to be aware that even though the owner may not know,
she knows.
Of course she knows. Of course she knows. I don't know how I know and she doesn't know. But anyways,
yeah.
Thank you again.
I'm Judy Clabeau, a good friend of Brenda Gorman's. I don't speak as well as Brenda does, but I've lived in Rossmoor longer, 40 years. My kids are here, my grandchildren are here, my mother was the original real estate broker. I think a lot of this falls on the Rossmoor homeowners who also had a chance to incorporate twice before. We would have had power as a city. Everybody thought we could stay as we are, and so consequently, here we are. John Morlock, I mean, I've had plenty of words with him. He knows where I stand. He could care less about us. I think we need to unite, and I agree, the RCSD, you're all Rossmoor homeowners, whether you do it as RCSD members, but I mean, we need to get united, we need to fight this, because you know how hard it is to get out on Los Al Boulevard, and once they get all this other building done, people are not going to fight that. They're going to go down Montecito, they're going to be going out Hedwick. I mean, it's going to impact our whole community so bad. And so let's get together, and for those in the audience that felt that Rossmoor could stay the way Rossmoor always has been, it can't happen. I mean, personally, I would love it if we were an incorporated city. We could even look at gating it off. That would eliminate a lot of problems. Whatever, but let's go forward and let's not just sit and, you know, be somebody else's patsy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Claudia.
Good evening, I'm Dell Clark, and I also talked to Madeline Jackwell this evening before this meeting, and you know, unfortunately, we're sort of just late to the party. This process has been going on for several years. They have been involved in a conditional use permit where all of this has been approved. That was open to the public, that was supposedly dialogued and discussed. All this has now come down because now we see the buildings going up, now we see the traffic impact, now we see what the actual flow of traffic is going to be. And quite frankly, it really bothers me a great deal that we have two groups here that represent us. And I know what your representation is. And I'm a long-term member and past president of the Homeowners Association. I'm very disappointed in the fact that we've come now, right now, when all of this was going on in the past, when our voices possibly could have made a difference and could have been heard. And maybe now it is something like, you know, getting out with picket signs and doing all of that. But hopefully, and we've been torn so much, you know, we listened tonight about consolidation of these communities. That is a red herring. Morlock wants to get rid of us. He wants that as his legacy. And so we're fighting to save that corner on Los Alamitos Boulevard, and now all this is impacting us, but somehow it's a little too late, too much too late. I can remember when I've been in this community probably so long I can't even believe it. I can remember they were building the Bixby buildings, and I got very involved in the Homeowners Association at that point. I can remember going down to the city of Seal Beach to their council chambers and standing up and making these great pleas, and they shook their head very nicely and patted, and I got a few claps, and guess what? They all went up anyway. So somehow whatever decision is made tonight, I'm even more concerned about what happens to our community in the future. I'm concerned about adding our powers, that we can keep at least doing what we're doing in a very, very economical way. I think that is critical. And so somehow let's look at that in terms of how we move forward. And, you know, I'll be happy to carry a petition or sign up whatever they want to do with this thing tonight. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Emil George. I've been in this community 42 years, since I was born. My folks picked out a lot in Rossmoor in 1959, picked out the model home, put it up, and they've lived there ever since. They're still there on Walker Lee. I think what these ladies have said is, I agree with 100%. The bigger picture is, in a few more years, you're going to be presiding over a ghost town, because traffic is unbearable as it is. If it gets any worse, those that have means will move out. They're out of here. And then what? Your property values are going to tank. And then what? It's crap. This is going to turn into crap. And you guys are going to let it happen. It sounded like these ladies are coming up with solutions, and you're ready to lay down and give up. It sounds like you're saying, what can we do? Nothing. We can't do anything. We got to do something. At least get together and make some decisions. And we'll all support you. We elected you. We'll support you. That's all I have to say. This is very important. We're at a crossroads. Let's not mess this up.
Michelle Fieldson, first of all, I'd like to say, with all due respect to the RCSD, and some frustration I'm sensing in the audience, we did not elect you as city council members. You have limited jurisdiction, and the frustration is people want you to fix this, and I would just like to say, I understand that isn't your position. You are not trying to just ignore it. You are not trying to lay down. I'm a little bit frustrated that the anger seems to be directed towards you.
I don't receive it as anger.
Okay. But the one thing I did want to say, Mr. Tobwater, you said that the owner of the property had done a study indicating that the new entrance into the shopping center showed no additional impact. And with a Toys R Us, Babies R Us, In-N-Out, and a Rite Aid, I'm wondering what information was used to determine that there would be no additional congestion or anything going in there. And even though this isn't your responsibility, how we might go about getting that information, if you could give us some direction.
Well, because it was done with their own funds and their own authority, all you can do is ask them to provide you with that information. It wasn't done by a public agency. It was done by a private traffic consultant that they hired to do those analyses for them.
Thank you.
I'll give you her number if you like, and you can call and see if she'll provide you with that information.
That would be great. Thank you.
Give it to everybody.
Gentlemen, I do thank you for all the work that you're doing, all of you, on our behalf. We know that the Homeowners Association and the RCSD are both working on our behalf, and we do appreciate it. The one solution I haven't heard come up here, we started out, Rossmoor and the Rossmoor Shinner were all the same thing. Ron Cortese owned it all. In order to build Leisure World, he traded our shopping center to Seal Beach. Why can't we annex it back? We'd have a tax base, we'd be able to have a city, we could do anything we wanted to. So I don't know what would be involved. If it's up for sale, let's find out how much it is and buy it back. But that would certainly take care of a lot of our problems, and we would have control over our own streets and our own revenue.
That's an option.
Ma'am.
Pass a bond measure.
Hello?
Hello, ma'am.
I would buy it back.
Your name, please?
Your name?
Residents here.
Thank you.
It's a good investment.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Hello. How much is it worth? My name's Steve Leitner, local resident here for 37 years, born and raised. And I'm also a local real estate agent in the neighborhood. I just got here. I'm sorry I missed a lot of what was said, but I was at my son's birthday party. And I just wanted to give you kind of a angle from my perspective on growing up here as a kid and having 3 young ones starting now. As a kid, we had a bowling alley, we had a movie theater, we had the Parasol, and we had Rossmoor as our home community. Now it just feels like we're being, everything, all the garbage that Seal Beach doesn't want is getting placed here in our neighborhood. Of course. And I don't think it's right. I know from my professional experience that home values are going to be affected. I already heard it, seen it. A lot of the crime that's been happening in the last few years, I feel, is a little bit of the mix of what's getting traffic through this area. If you go 10 miles this way, any direction, and somebody asks you where you live, and you say, I live in Rossmoor, they'll say, where's that? Right. It's because it's such a small, tight community that people don't know where it is. But when you start putting it on Marshalls, and you start putting it in Toys R Us, and you start putting it in Babies R Us, you're getting traffic from all different neighborhoods to come here to this mecca center of low price shopping, to call it. So what do? They exit Montecito, they start driving through our neighborhoods, and they start seeing, hey, here's another market of opportunity. So, I mean, maybe that's just my angle, I don't know, but I've noticed the last few years that this neighborhood isn't what it was when I was growing up. And, you know, I always wanted to stay here because I wanted my daughter to be able to ride her bike to school. I wanted to be able to let her go play at the park with her friends without me being there. And to be honest with you, when I go to Sprouts, I have to look over my shoulder. And I don't want it to feel that way. And I think that we really need to fight this because it's just going to get worse. Especially if they put in the low-income housing, it's going to just start bringing down property values in our neighborhood. And I know that, you know, the lady said we didn't elect you to as council members, but we have nobody else to turn to. And, you know, I'm just saying I plan on pretty much living here the rest of my life and raising my family here, and I just really, really hope you guys do what you can, okay? Not what you can't. Just do what you can. And that's all we can ask. And really, really, really fight this because it's going to be a big burden on our city, or our community. I don't call it a city now. All right? Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's Paula Suits. I've lived in Rossmoor for about 18 years, and one question I have, has an environmental impact report been commissioned by anybody for this development? I've been sitting here, and I just don't know if it's been commissioned for every development I've ever heard of.
I think Seal Beach has commissioned theirs. They've got their results, but the county doesn't.
We're allowed to demand, and if this is in our backyard, we have to. It's supposed to be made public, isn't it? I mean, right. Coastal Commission, environmental impact. I mean, it's just a question I have. I just haven't heard the answer to that.
Here's my view. and this is not a criticism, and if it is received as a criticism, it's one for myself too. I firmly believe the Homeowners Association has the primary lead on this, but I'm not saying that this board will not take any action, but that's my view. Number two, I'd like to see this turn out tonight at the Homeowners Association when it's agendized prospectively in January. Because I've been to a few meetings recently, and if you get a dozen people there, it's a lot. And I appreciate that this is a forum where it's televised, and sure, we want traction tonight. We want it to resonate well in everyone's mind if they should be so bored to cruise Channel 3 during this next few weeks as they're going from one channel to another, and maybe they'll listen, and we'll get some traction. But I really think that if we can get the Homeowners Association to get excited about this, as where there's passion here tonight, there will be some traction, because you know what happens? I hate to say this. My glass is always half full. That's my nature. But when you say we need to do, it's the Miss Gormans and Ms. Klaba that will consistently come forward, but the balance of the community doesn't continue to go to the meetings and keep the momentum. And that's what's really necessary. I mean, this is all good, but we need to keep the momentum going. And I don't know how to do that. For one, I'm not going to spearhead it myself as an individual, but some people need to do it consistently. It seems like it's the same people sometimes that are spearheading things. I personally was involved in the Homeowners Association when the 405, 605 connector was of issue. That's where it truly fell, the responsibility, and we fought it and we won. It just needs some traction with some new faces as well to get this excitement going and to make some noise and to take it to the City Council of Seal Beach, to take it to the county supervisor. I'm not saying we're not going to do anything tonight. I'm just saying it just seems to dissipate and it goes away. And then, you know, the attention is not always there. And that's just my point of view.
Okay, but my question still remains. Has an environmental impact review been done on this development? Does anybody know that?
No.
I don't think the county's done it, no.
Okay. For every development, my husband's in the in real estate business, corporate real estate business, and that was the first question.
Sure.
Has it been done?
I don't think the county's done anything.
So that is, I think, the first step, right? No, we can't? I mean,
Ms. Brent,
Can you come to the microphone?
it's just a question. I just think that's...
No, these are good questions, ma'am. I don't think that the county has taken any responsive position and communicated that they've done anything for us.
Well, I don't have a whole bunch of knowledge about this, so I'm going to tell you as I understood it, that they are claiming that they are putting the same footprint back up there that they took out. Is that right, Henry?
That's correct, and I think they
Okay.
probably did a negative deck. They basically
No, I
said...
don't think they did anything.
Well, no, you have to do something. When you pull the building permit, planning department is going to ask you to do something.
Well, first of all, they haven't pulled a building permit yet on Toys R Us or that. There hasn't been all there's been is a grading permit and a site permit. That's it. So, but going back to this, my understanding is that they did not have to do anything like that. Because that's how I knew that the traffic study was done in 2003. I said, what about a traffic study?
The first question needs to
Right.
be answered.
Well, exactly.
Okay. Don't you jump in? All right.
There's a void at the microphone.
Anyone else have any more comments coming up?
Quick, you should.
Homeowners
It's
meeting?
the third Tuesday in January.
Hi,
Go for it.
Can we keep the voices down? We have other people that are addressing the community here. Thank you.
my name's Cheryl Rudick, and I'm Brenda's niece, and we've been in the area, I'm not going to say how many years, and you'll know how old I am, but anyway. Younger. I have a couple questions and things to ask. One is, I feel terrible as a resident growing up here that we didn't get involved years ago, as someone pointed out. I think, but now we're seeing what happened to the community. I don't know why we have two organizations that don't meet together. I don't know why they're separate entities, but it seems like if I understand you are all in Rossmoor, and as elected officials, you should be as upset and as interested in stepping forward to spearhead anything this community is interested in. And I suggest we don't just write letters. That's, you all know, you're businessmen, that you know that doesn't work, right? So maybe we get together with the Rossmoor Homeowners Association, and our next meeting is held in the parking lot over at the shops at Rossmoor, and we invite the media, and we get a lot of exposure, and we get several hundred people who show up, and we put out chairs, and you head the meeting in the parking lot. We are not visible. I mean, listen, as many people pointed out, the local news needs stories. Okay, how many stations reported on the crime, right, in Rossmoor? Okay, so there's no reason we can't get a couple searchlights, set up chairs, and hold a meeting and start raising some interest now. We can't just give up. It's too dangerous. I have a 16-year-old to drive in this community. It's far too dangerous. You know, one of the things that Brenda obviously did not mention, but my cousin got into a motorcycle accident on Seal Beach Boulevard a few years back. And guess what? We now realize it's because of the traffic. It was the backup on the boulevard, it was the construction, it was going in there, and someone in our family almost died. And I know everyone has, I don't know if people have seen the pictures on what happened on the boulevard, what, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, when the boulevard shut down with head-on collisions. I mean, it's because of the traffic, the chaos happening in the community. And I don't appreciate not taking a stand and, you know, emailing a board member and having them say, we don't have any say and we don't have anything to do with it. Whatever you feel your responsibility is, I mean, step up and show the community that you are just as interested in what the community is, and I think we should hold the next meeting out in the public so people know what's going on, and we can invite the media, and we can get in the newspaper, and we can approach, like Brenda said, the new owners. The new owners need to know what the community feels. So I think we should get together. Thanks.
Thank you. I just want to, I've been listening a lot, haven't had put in my 2 cents for a while, but I am with you. I'm actually outraged about this. This has been on my awareness for probably 2 to 3 months. I would tell you that the housing element aspect, there's a lot of moving pieces here. So I'm just going to start with the housing elements. That is not a done deal. What they did in the city of Seal Beach is they submitted a housing element plan to the state, to a particular department, to make sure they did it right, that they followed process, et cetera. That is going to come back to them probably in the next 5, 6, 7 days. Who knows how long they're going to hear the state's response to their housing element plan? I don't know, but by law, come January, February, they will have open meetings. Everyone now here knows about the issue. One, I've been wanting to thank you. I'm sorry, I'm not very good with names, but thank you, Brenda. I want to thank you for bringing this to the agenda. Without you stepping forward, none of this visibility would have ever happened. So I really want to thank you for doing that. So we all are Rossmoorians, for lack of a better word. We have lots of committees. We have the RHA, we have the RCSD, we actually have our Rossmoor Preservation Committee who's been protecting the corner. I actually think that Rossmoor Preservation Committee is about preserving what is Rossmoor. I definitely feel that this is part of their agenda. I personally will be meeting with Eric and with his teams because I think this needs some mojo. I think this needs a lot. The housing element, right now they're going to do some rezoning or at least put on paper that it could possibly be low-income housing. The term actually isn't even low-income housing anymore. It's called high density. So they want to get high density. And the saddest thing about this whole political process that was started in the state of California years ago is where people have these housing elements, usually what happens, luxury apartments, because the state cannot fix prices of what low income means. So a lot of these areas that define a housing element, they put in the high density, they end up being high rise. They end up being luxury. I don't know how this would ever be luxury because you'd have to drive into a parking lot or an alley to get to your place. So on this one here, at least for the housing elements, it's not a done deal. So now what is our job? Our job is visibility. There are 10,200 residents who live here. How many people are aware of this? Tonight we have a very beginning roots, a very good turnout. I encourage everyone, myself included, to keep spreading the word that we need everyone's help. We need to be loud, we need to be vocal, and with the help of the RHA, the ROSSMOOR Preservation Committee, ourselves included, what I've found since I've sat in this desk since June is, you're right, this is not being a member of a city council. What this really means is we are all activists to preserve our community, and that's what is needed, and I believe that's what everyone's heart is here for. And I think we all can get together. So I just want to talk about that part. As for all of the permits, yes, we can be loud. I'm not sure how far that process has gone, but I know the housing elements, by law, they have to have a certain amount of more meetings and more public hearings. And right now, we did invite Gary Miller to come. I think he had other obligations because, oh, Gary Miller, there you are. I invited Gary Miller, who I've talked to on the phone in detail about this issue as soon as it became aware to me. Gary Miller is the city councilman, one of two who voted not to submit their paperwork into the state. I would like to invite Gary, if you would like to come up here and give him your point of view. Pardon? Okay.
Mr. Miller.
Well, if anything, I gift wrapped them to you guys. So, please, Mr. Miller.
Oh, thank you. Again, I'm Gary Miller. I'm the District 4 City Councilman, which is north of the freeway and east of Seal Beach Boulevard. So, correctly, shops at Rossmoor are not, they're not in my district. But first of all, I was going to digress to a couple other items just for background. I do work with Alfred Coletta quite often, so he is engaged, believe it or not, on a number of things. Not necessarily official, but I do talk with Alfred occasionally. First of all, with regard to the left turn lane into Rossmoor and also into part of Seal Beach along Montecito, a couple of years ago, the city manager was talking to me, our former city manager, about painting the second left turn lane to Rossmoor rather than have it be functional. And I said, well, why does that make any sense? Because at 4:30 in the afternoon, people trying to go into Rossmoor are backed up almost to Lamson. And if you have two left turn lanes there, they'll get in much easier. And he said, well, then we have that first intersection's a problem. And I said, well, maybe you can put an area where you can't be parked in that area. But again, that was before we even knew about these shops that are coming in now. And there was a Petco going in there, or with a hotel, pet hotel, which I doubt would have had as much traffic as what they're putting in now. With regard to the left turn lane, again, I wasn't aware that it was so much of a concern to Rossmoor. I thought it was going to be a benefit to Rossmoor by having that extra left turn lane. Of course, that was before you have Toys R Us and Babies R Us. And I personally, because of the housing element and because I wanted to analyze personally the surplus parking in the shops at Rossmoor, I asked for all the parking studies associated with all the things that have gone on, and I guess you wouldn't be surprised to know there are no parking studies. I said it's not an infinite parking lot. You can't keep putting buildings in, and then when you put a building in a certain area, how much parking is around that area to park? And there's no answers to those questions. If there's a study, I haven't seen it, and the answer to me was there's no parking studies. I guess I want to mention two things before I go back to the housing element. And I may have talked to Alfred about this, and I may not have talked to Alfred about this, but there was a plan for the South 605 to the 405 connector to be closed for, I think it was 12 consecutive days. And I took issue with that, and I've talked to Caltrans, I've talked to OCTA about that, and I'm not sure they're going to make an adjustment. They were going to put 55,000 cars a day onto our surface streets for 12 consecutive days. Now, I think they're rethinking that. I hope they're rethinking that. You may want to ask Supervisor Morlock about that. I've tried my best to say that that's ridiculous, and I think a lot of people think it's hard to sway Caltrans and OCTA, but I'm still trying. The other thing is that you might already know that the next plan for the next freeway revision is they're going to add 2 lanes in each direction and have maybe one be a toll lane, possibly. And my concern there is twofold. One, well, primarily it's air quality, because, and they're also coming into my track and taking a little bit of the back street, maybe 10 feet of that away out of our community in College Park East. But my air quality issues are that we have the most busiest freeway right here, and now they're going to bring 2 more lanes north, 2 more lanes south, but the ones coming north, as soon as they get to the LA County line, there's no expansion going on there. So it's going to become a bottleneck, and they're going to just sit there and, in my opinion, there's going to be pollution. So I'm looking forward to seeing their EIR, which I think is either going to be out this month or next month, coming up. With regard to the housing element, I took issue with that because of lack of public notification and the process that went on. Some of it may have fallen on my fault, because I wasn't advised by the people I have on that committee that they were working on the housing element. They were supposed to be working on the coastal plan, I thought. It's called the Ad Hoc General Plan and Coastal Plan Citizen Advisory Committee. And one of the things assigned to them was the housing element, but I wasn't aware of it until it was done, unfortunately. And when I say done, as you said, it's in draft form. The draft is done. Anyway, on November 16th, there was a conference call between the Seal Beach City staff and the Melinda Coy of the California Department of Housing and Community Development. And in that particular meeting, because of the efforts of people in Rossmoor as well as in Seal Beach, and you have to remember, Seal Beach is important in my district. The people that live in the Old Ranch townhomes over here are very interested in what's happening in the shops of Rossmoor, as well as the people that are not in my district, that are about 1,000 people that live off of Montecito. So it's also important to the people that live in this area. Anyway, and before I go to that, I was also unhappy with the process, because the committee was made up of 60 to 70% of people from Old Town and the Hill, which means the beach people. And it was kind of like it was the old, not in my area, you know. The DWP property was the driving force, in my opinion, because 2 months after the DWP property settlement was settled, they put forth the housing element because we were short a housing element. And if there are people in Old Town that don't want that developed, and so as soon as that process had got farther along, they would have probably filed a complaint because there was no housing element. So that's why the housing element came along. And I've been told by the state that the DWP property is not a viable for the affordable housing because it's already in process. We also had 2 other pieces of property that weren't considered, and one was the Exxon property, which is adjacent to Marina Park, which is one that they have, the city has asked for a grant to develop a major park there for the city, and they're asking for a $5 million grant. If that grant doesn't come through, that property is then available, but staff has made a point to the state that there's contamination on the property, which there is because it was an oil site for transporting oil. So, you know, I rather can be cleaned up. They were going to do a study before they filed for the application, but they didn't.
So they want to have a park where it's contaminated, but you can't have a house where it's contaminated?
Well, it's going to have to be cleaned up.
Kids can play there. I know.
In 2009, there's actually prints of showing affordable housing on that site, which are now, you know, that may still become available before it's done. And then the other one was a state property, and they said, oh, we don't want to do the state property, which is just off of Pacific Coast Highway, because that is part of the, Hellman may want to expand their area for the wetlands. And since then, since I made a point that you know, that it's there, it's a foundation, it's available, they've said, well, maybe the state doesn't call that surplus. So that's the staff. So in some ways, I argue with my own staff. Maybe you have the luxury of not having that here, Henry. No. But anyway, I've actually also tried to talk to the owner, and I've been unsuccessful, so I'll get the number from Henry tonight, because it's important. If you look at the draft, it says the owner agrees with this residential development. So, and the meeting that President Collada attended, the Public Works, the Director of Services said he had 5 conference calls with all the potential owners. So I'd like to, if that would make a difference. I mean, I think there's one vote that's didn't go with us when we said we didn't want it up here at the shops at Rossmoor, because he felt that the people in the shopping center wanted it to come. And so I think if they make it clear they don't want it to come, that's one positive thing on behalf of those who would prefer not to have it at the shops at Rossmoor. Even if we go back and restudy it, it may end up back up here. I can't guarantee you anything. But anyway, on the 16th, they had a conference call. Melinda Coy questioned the city's outreach program, and in particular, she identified the Rossmoor area, which was good. And again, it was because the people of Rossmoor did comment, and I think it was beneficial. She also indicated that the city of Seal Beach should take extra effort to make sure that the Rossmoor people are notified of future plans, future meetings. Well, that's what we've been told. So there will be 3 meetings. In January or February, there will be a meeting of this ad hoc committee. I'm not sure when it's going to be because we still haven't got feedback from the state yet on the draft housing element. Then there will be a public meeting with the Planning Commission, followed by a public meeting with the council. And I would urge everyone that wants to voice an opinion to come to all 3 meetings. And the other thing is, one of my issues was, well, I don't think you need to get into the issues, but they said it was in the paper, and I researched that it wasn't in the paper, so they took it back out of the draft, and they said they put it on the board outside the council chambers, and that's all their legal requirement is. And I personally had I sent a 4-page letter to HCD on my own opinion of this housing element with many attachments. And one of my points is that not only you in Rossmoor, but us in College Park East and the District 4 are not going to drive to City Hall every day to read what they put on the board.
Right.
That's not making available public participation. So I took issue with that. What will happen is if this isn't changed, the city will, within probably a year or so, rezone that property RHD 33 for 33 units to be placed on 1 acre of property.
Now,
but that can stay.
That goes to your city council for a vote, though, correct?
Well, we'll still be voting.
Okay.
After the public sessions.
All right. So here's just my question. Obviously, you saw a lot of passionate people. You can turn around and look at them one by one. These people actually share the same view of you, that housing element is not best suited to be on that spot. What advice can you give us, or what do you think it will take to swing one more council member so it ends up going 3-2 in the favor of outcome we want? What advice can you give us?
Well, again, I just give you the first key one, in my opinion, is that the owner or potential owners or whoever's owning make it clear that they have no desire to have residential property developed there. I think that's number one. And the second thing is they're going to identify some property, and it's where's the property going to be? As it was mentioned, somebody mentioned the Boeing lot. It was also mentioned that night that nobody had even talked to Boeing. So it's like we're now using the Boeing lot without talking to them about the parking lot and what we'd like to do there. To me, the state lands property is the most ideal spot. I mean, if the state wants affordable housing, there's the affordable housing. It's your land, it's available, use it.
Where is that located?
That's right on Pacific Coast Highway, just as you leave to go into Long Beach, on the right side there. It used to have a dance hall there 40 years ago or whatever. There's still the foundation of the dance hall. And right behind that is the Hellman wetlands. But there are no wetlands right in that particular area.
But overall, there are 17 sites that are being considered. Is that true?
I saw a summary page that had 10 sites that were considered, total.
Okay.
And that didn't include the DWP property, that didn't include the Exxon property, which is adjacent to Marina, and that didn't include the state property. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, it did include the state property. They eliminated it, saying that maybe the Hellman people would want to take that over on a maybe, which is a speculation. I feel like we may be fighting with, staff may have a bias towards keeping it out of Old Town. That's my opinion. The other thing that will happen is, or can happen, is that can stay a parking lot. I mean, it can be rezoned RHD 33 and it can stay a parking lot. I mean, they don't have to develop it. I mean, they can't make it commercial. to go back to commercial, I'm still got to follow up with the state and get more of the details about if they want to do less than 33 units, what would happen. I need to know, if they want to go back commercial, I know the city has to go and find some other site before they let them rezone it to commercial. Anyway, for now, it can stay. If it is zoned for RHD 33, it can stay a parking lot. That the owner doesn't have to develop it. And the other thing is that, as I think you've mentioned, Michael, if they build 33 units, they can price it any way they want. Now, where it's located may be an impact, and where the people are going to park that don't park in their parking lot is also another issue. So, there's got to be an environmental study, and I've been told there will be an environmental study, but, an environmental study can be just like, okay, it's done.
See, the approach they take is, okay, well, we'll subterranean parking. What about the visitors and friends and family of the people? They sequester, they get no friends and family, and then as they leave and they come and they go, where do they get drive-through? How do they get there?
Oh, I know.
That's the thing that's not being spoken. And then we already have that impact, Mr. Miller, as you know, with the condominiums and the apartments on Montecito. There, from our end, it's our units and your units, there is an overflow into the street. This is just going to aggravate it that much worse. And they don't, the community down there doesn't want to hear it. They don't want to take it to a community where there isn't the density, like the Boeing site. That's my favorite site. There isn't the traffic and congestion there. There isn't.
If it could be out by Island Village, I think it would be just almost a continuation.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. You still feel a community there, and there isn't the traffic there. It just seems like a no-brainer.
Right.
But it needs council support.
Well,
can you come to the microphone, please? You really need, the people at home need to be able to hear the
We
question.
can't catch it on the camera unless you go to the mic.
Please come up to the podium.
Please.
I'll call you out. State your name.
I just want to ask why a Toys R Us in Rossmoor and a Toys R Us and a Babies R Us in Rossmoor. Why? You could have put it on Pacific Coast Highway in Seal Beach, but it's really cheapening.
That's easy. I'm not the owner.
It's really cheapening the area. Really, a great deal. I have a very loud voice. I think I can be heard. Why not in Seal Beach on Pacific Coast Highway?
Well, again, I'm not the owner, and, I don't know where, that's a corporation. I don't know where they're going. And I'm not sure about the status of where the Toys R Us and Babies R Us, what the status is at this time, so.
And why weren't we asked what we would like, in our center? Maybe some ideas from Rossmoor.
Not our community.
Since it's in our community.
Again, I think Mr. Miller makes a good point. I mean, it's a private owner that owns the entire shopping center, and they chose, when they redeveloped it, did their survey, and they found what would be best tracking with us and what would, in their mind. I mean,
In their mind, but we're 3,400 homes.
I agree with you, ma'am.
In our community, so we should have a say about.
I agree.
Yeah,
What do we want? Maybe we would like to have had a couple of nice restaurants.
We are their customers.
Or a supermarket on that side, but not a Toys R Us. You can't get any worse than that.
Right, we're all together on this.
It's cheapening Rossmoor.
I understand. I've been here a long time. I remember the Boston store. Again, I would only say, if you have issues with the left turn lanes, you can bring them forward to the city manager or whoever, because I wasn't aware you had issues with it at this point, to be honest.
Mr. Miller, as a friend of our community, which you clearly are, I would ask you if you can make time in the early part of January to meet with the Homeowners Association president. And I would hope this will be agendized for their meeting the third Tuesday in January.
Correct.
I think if you spoke and gave this foundation some of this history, for those that don't have the benefit of watching this filmed over the next couple days, they may be traveling, but I expect that a lot of people will be returning after the holidays. But if you can take a moment, as you have tonight, so generously of your time to come here and give the Homeowners Association board the foundation of what you've learned, the research you've done, the work that you've done to oppose this effort, it would help bring a group together with a stronger bond Because there isn't all this hearsay upon hearsay. It'll be that much closer to the source. You having vetted it from your position, now having heard the concerns here, which resonate with what you've already had in mind, but now even more so, I think we might be able to bring to your city council a very, very a strong opposition in a good way that will support your community and, of course, be a benefit to us as well. I think we all have to work together on this, and I think if we can merge the two communities together, albeit you're a municipality and we're an unincorporated area, I think that's what's necessary.
Yeah. Well, I'll try.
If you can, we really appreciate it.
My schedule's already closing up in January pretty quick. One of the things I wanted to say before I leave, first of all, I can't guarantee it won't be in the shops of Rossmoor in the end. I mean, that just may happen, but at least I wanted the public to have the process. The public was not given the process, and that was my issue. The other thing, I just want to thank the residents of Rossmoor for their support of the Salon Meritage tragedy. We appreciated it, and we're all a big community. As you know, the people are from all over our area, and we're very appreciative of your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller.
Thank you.
We need to take a 1 minute break. They need to change the tape. Could you hold your comment? And
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank you. We're going to go off camera for a couple minutes. We're just going to take a break. All right, we're back on record here. We're resuming back with matter H2, which is the citizens' request regarding the developments of the Rossmoor Shopping Center. Sir, you have the floor.
I'm Spencer Hartman. I've lived here for about 13 years now. I'm still in high school, and with the In-N-Out and Toys R Us, those aren't really beneficial to teenagers. The one good thing about the In-N-Out is that during school lunches, the one in the Carson shopping center is going to be less full. So that's what I got for that. But why are there why is there nothing else for teens? Or like there used to be a movie theater, a bowling alley.
That's a good question.
Yep. I realize it was a private owner, or it is a private owner. But why don't they ask us what we want or what teens want? I just wanted to hear your opinion on that.
I missed the movie theater, and I missed the bowling alley.
I was too young to remember it. So.
Well, it wasn't that long ago, but everyone relished it on Saturday nights and Friday nights, the $2 movie theater, $1 popcorn and $1 sodas. In the bowling alley, I would go probably once a year with friends. And
I missed the Thrifty with the little scoops of ice cream that I could ride my bike to.
Yeah. So we all missed the Rossmoor Bakery, and we missed the shoes repair and Chinese restaurant. We missed all that.
True Value that had everything you could possibly find, like every screw and nut and bolt for your 50-year-old house.
In this really small store. And
yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. So those were the good old days.
So why? Also, but for kids to get to school, why? Or I don't really know how to phrase this, but why are we putting in more lanes for cars, but we need bike lanes? We have like a 200-foot bike lane in front of the gas station right next to Los Alamitos. It says literally bike lane starts here, 200 feet down, bike lane ends. And I've been pulled over about 7 times by cops for either riding on the sidewalk or riding in the street, which doesn't make sense either way because there's no way for me to get to school. So do you have any opinions on that? Like, why can't we have those instead?
I don't think anyone's ever expressed that, and that's a very good point. The bike lane, I didn't notice that only was provided for 200 feet. That doesn't make sense. Why would you start something you can't finish? So I don't have an answer for you.
All right.
But those are valid points. They're all things that we all value, we esteem, we miss. And you know, when the owner a few years back remodeled the Rossmoor Shopping Center, there was an outreach, but very much the research was directed, I'm sure, to which the vision the property manager, the property owner had for their future center. And I guess our ideas didn't track well with theirs, and since they're paying for it, you know, you can shop there, you don't. And I think that's the attitude that they expressed. Not saying that they said that, but that's their conduct did that. Their conduct expressed that, and I'm sure they did the best they could. I know one of the things that they expressed vocally was they didn't want to have a liquor store. They were concerned with the bowling alley and the movie theater, which I find not to be the examples which they would weigh their decision on, but because of the nighttime activity, young adults, old adults, middle-aged adults, teenagers, frequenting those two places. Why those two places? I don't know why not. You know, that there was this Asian or Chinese food place that stayed up at least 9 or 10 o'clock, but they focused on those two, and they said, well, because of those two forms of divertment, they attracted potentially the wrong kind of conduct when people were there. And you know, maybe there may have been some statistics marginally to support that. I didn't see that there was necessarily something that community was opposed to. No one said shut down the movie theater, and no one said to shut down the bowling alley, but that's what they chose to do. So that entertainment, that diversity, that divertment, that's not available. And sure, we have the few shops in the evening. You can go down to the yoga shop on a Friday or Saturday night, walk down with your family and friends or drive there, but there's not a lot. And I agree with you. There's things sorely missing for our community. The community for a long time, before you were born, had people your age that had that available to them, and it's no longer there. So those are all, you know, valid concerns. And I think if we own the shopping center, we could preserve a lot of those things that we were so accustomed to and took for granted. But when you don't have control of it, you know, you can't, you just, unless you have a relationship with the family, you can influence them. They're going to do what they want, and as they should. They're property owners. Yeah. Unless we owned it, we can't direct what's going to be open there for business.
Right.
We can try. We can try.
I have one last thing is, why is there going to be a Rite Aid if directly across the corner there's a CVS?
Doesn't make any sense.
And then right before Catella, there's another Rite Aid.
Because my sarcastic answer is, I guess every community needs 17 drugstores in a 4-mile radius, and we're below that quota. I have no idea why.
Actually, I heard one of the drugstores will be removed. Correct.
Oh, really?
Perfect.
All right.
So there'll be one less.
Yeah. Still have like 3 more.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. Good job.
Just real quick, my name is Emily Nell, and I'm, well, kind of sort of representing the RHA. I just wanted to let everybody know that the next meeting would be the 3rd Tuesday in January. It comes up as January 17th, and it always is the 3rd Tuesday of the month. They've been taking Decembers off for years, so that's why they're not having a meeting this month. They are very interested and concerned about the center and what's going on and about the community, as they have been for years and years. I just want to tell everybody to support the RHA and look out in your mailboxes for the January membership mailing, and please do sign up. It's only $20 contribution per year. And that is all.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
If I may, I just clearly, you know, we as a community are very frustrated with what's going on with our community, and that outside sources, whether it be Los Alamitos and trying to annex the corner, or Seal Beach and what they're doing right here in our backyards, it's very frustrating that we don't have control over our own destiny, if you will. And I think there were some comments earlier today about, you know what, let's not focus on what we can't do, let's focus on what we can do. So with that, I'd like to make a motion tonight that the RCSD will kind of meet and conform an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee would include the RHA, the ROSSMOOR Preservation Committee, RPC, the ROSSMOOR Advisory Committee, that we would get together as an ad hoc committee, and including in that process that there, hopefully from that process would start perhaps that petition that was talked about earlier, so maybe a letter writing campaign, an email campaign, and that ultimately we'll have a special meeting with all of us on the second Tuesday in January, which is January 10th. And that motion would be at 6 o'clock before our regularly scheduled meeting, and we'd like to invite the TV here as well to be part of that, because I think that clearly tonight we have seen that this is a enormous issue for our community, and that the only way to do anything is if we all get together, and all the organizations or groups that are working on behalf of the community to get together to deal with this issue. So that's my motion.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. See you back here on second Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Hopefully Channel 3 you'll be here.
Mr. President, members of,
You're good.
Mr. President, members of the board, we still have to determine whether there's an availability for a Time Warner before we can guarantee that it'll be televised. What you've done in the past is you have started your board meeting at 6 o'clock and conducted board business, and then had the public forum part of it at 7 o'clock when we're guaranteed that we have the cameras rolling. So that might be an option for us. It is an awfully short time for us to advertise and get this thing done, particularly with the holidays and other factors, but it's the will of the board. We'll try and make it happen.
Try to do the best we can. As I think we all share, I think for that special ad hoc meeting, it's not an official RCSD meeting. I didn't take it in the motion that it's an RCSD chaired meeting, but that ad hoc group will chair the meeting, and they'll be sitting here running that agenda item and working with the public and see what consensus is developed in the interim between today and the 10th.
Mr. President, if you're going to hold it as part of your RCSD...
No, I didn't say that. I said not part of.
No, but if you're holding it within that time frame, you need to be aware of the Brown Act and the fact that if more than 2 of you are present at what is a normally constituted board meeting time, that we may have some legal issues there that we need.
Well, if there's only one member from this board on that ad hoc committee, then we wouldn't have a Brown Act issue.
That's why I was hoping to do it from 6 to 7 and not during the middle of the meeting, which is
and that's fine. And I think, but as I said, until we make certain that we can have what you want, which is TV exposure.
Correct.
I can't guarantee you that until we speak with Time Warner.
Do the best we can. We've made the overture now, and hopefully we'll make that overture in writing this week before.
Well, I'll make it right after this meeting.
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your patience on this issue. Now we go back to our regular matters, reports to the board. Mr. Talbot will go back to D1, which is the Investment Committee report regarding our investments.
Mr. President, members of the board, the Investment Committee met on November 29th to review our investment portfolio and maturing investments. And after considerable discussion, the committee recommended the following action be taken by the board. In your packet, you will see that what those investments are. They're part of the agenda package. And what you have is investments that are going to mature in January and in March, I believe. You have a CD that of $100,000 that matures on March the 17th. You have a $150,000 CD that matures in the January the 11th of 2012. And you also have an investment with Fund 20, which is a Rush Park bond, and in the amount of $368,000, which matures on the 15th of February. So the committee basically reviewed its investment options based on the current market conditions. I've got to tell you that they're pretty dismal. CDs are now at the highest rate you can get for a one-year investment is a 1% return. The difficulty with CDs, of course, is that they're not liquid. They're for 1 or 2 years. And at a 1% return, you have no liquidity, and so you're kind of stuck with it unless you want to pay a penalty to move it to something else. The committee took all of that into consideration, and they made these following recommendations. That the $150,000 CD, which matures on 1/11/2012, be reinvested in another CD for a one-year term. The highest interest yielding rate CD at this time is 1%. If we were to just take that money and place it into LAIF, you'd only be getting 0.39%. So there is an advantage to the CD, even though the liquidity factor is not available to you. That the second recommendation was that the $100,000 CD, which matures in March 17th of 2012, be reviewed by the committee at maturity for possible reinvestment in a mutual fund with conditions stated in your investment policy of district funds. Now, with regard to the maturing Fund 20 agency bond, which matures on January 15th, the committee agreed with the staff recommendation that the monies from the maturing agency bond be kept in the reserve account at U.S. Bank at a money market fund. The investment is only currently paying 0.05 interest, but you're very limited in what you can invest in, and agency bonds today are only paying 0.25% year to maturity for a one-year term, or 0.42 yield to maturity for a two-year term. And so it makes good sense, we believe, that if we just leave it in the reserve account at U.S. Bank, even though it's only getting 5 basis points, that if market conditions were to change, then we could come back and reinvest it in something else. That's the recommendation of the investment committee, and they are available here to answer any other questions you may have.
Yeah, I just want to put shed some more light on this. I'm a part of the investment committee, and as what Mr. Tabata says, our options are so limited that, I mean, we went around and around. Well, can we do this? No. How about this? No. Can we use this instrument? No. How about this? And it's like, okay, so I have option A or B, and this seemed the best approach at like the present time. And so, I mean, if you guys have any other options, I mean, we're like all ears, but I think we turned over every stone on this, and this is the best. It's not great, but it's like it's the best of the worst options to go forward with.
Mr. President, members of the board, those are investment rates that are available today. They could change in January, they could change in March.
They could change tomorrow.
So
yeah, they probably will.
Are the limitations due to our, not requirement, but our strategy of being liquid for liquidity? Is that one of the factors that?
Well, your investment policy basically stresses that you make investments that are within the parameters of law. And so there's only certain investments that you can invest public monies into. Okay. And within that decision-making process, then you have to weigh liquidity versus return on investment and safety. And so those are the three factors. So when you do an agency bond, for instance, you're looking for a AA+ bond at least. You're looking for a rate of return that's, that's highest that you can obtain at the time. And with regard to a term, you're looking for a term that isn't going to tie up your money for so long that the market may change dramatically and you're losing money. So it's a best guess estimate of what factors influence the decision-making process. And LAIF, for instance, had been a very good investment vehicle, but their interest rates are now down below 0.5 point. So there's nothing out there that makes good sense. LAIF does offer liquidity, but it doesn't offer much of a return on investment.
Thanks.
Is there a motion tonight?
I wanted to add one thing on item 2, the $100,000 $1,000 CD maturing in March, that hopefully the A-rated or better corporate bond fund that we're considering will, in my opinion, likely yield us at least around 2%. Of course, there's no guarantee on that, but that's what we're considering.
That's where the safety factor comes in, because while you can get a mutual bond fund that contains only those instruments that are within your investment policy, there is no guarantee. And so you're subject to then the performance of that bond as your rate of return. It certainly is a vehicle that's available to you in your investment policy, and when we meet at that time to discuss that, then we'll bring you some we'll bring you some agency fund or mutual fund instruments that have a balance of safety, liquidity, and yield.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Yes, sir. Can you approach the podium? We can't hear you on camera, so please come up. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
My name's Dave Burgess, and I'm a 50-plus year resident of ROSSMOOR. And on this investment, in the current economic environment, and to think we're going to be able to get another 0.25%, or even a point, on $100,000, $1,000, the downside risk, I would say, shouldn't be considered, or it should be taken seriously. I'd rather make 0.00% and have $300,000 a year from now than potentially getting, $305,000 a year from now, or $220,000. No risk. Money's not easy to come by.
As an example of the risk factor, the agency bond that is maturing, we realized a profit of just a little over $1,000 on a $368,000 bond. And the only reason we didn't lose money on that bond was because we bought a bond with a coupon that made up for some of that interest loss. Otherwise, we'd have been down about $20,000 in that particular bond, and that's a Fannie Mae. And so those have been gold up until recently. You could have safety, liquidity, and yield on those, and they're just not there anyway in today's market.
All right, so what's the motion tonight on this issue? Who's going to frame it?
All right, I'd like to frame a motion that we accept the investment committee's recommendations.
All right,
second.
Can you read it into the records exactly, so there's a record of what it is that the motion is? Because you can't attach this to the motion.
Oh, I can't. Okay, so I'd like to motion that the board approve the following two recommendations.
Three, sir.
Three recommendations. That one, the first recommendations, board approve that the $150,000 CD that matures on January 11th, 2012, be reinvested into another CD for a one-year term. The highest interest rate. Well, I don't need to state that.
No.
Point number two, that the $100,000 CD that matures on March 17th, 2012, be reviewed by the committee at maturity for possible reinvestment in a mutual fund with conditions stated in policy number 3035 of the investment of the district funds. And the third recommendation as regards the maturing Fund 20 agency bond that matures on January 15, 2012, that the monies from the bond be kept in a reserve account at U.S. Bank in a money market fund.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No one's opposed, and its motion carries. Now we go to D2, the Capital Improvement Project Committee report.
Mr. President, members of the board, the Public Works CIP Committee met to consider revised project lists and project budgets for inclusion with the mid-year budget adjustment. As you may know, in February, we'll bring you a mid-year budget adjustment which will take into account the changes that have occurred in both revenues and expenses during the first 6 months of the year. We asked the CIP Committee to look at the current project list that was developed as part of your June 30th or July 1st budget And we also looked at changes to that project list based on new projects that were identified during the last 6 months as candidates for inclusion in that project list. And we also tried our best to provide best estimates of cost for those projects and asked the committee to consider what projects would be maintained in the current fiscal year, which projects would be moved to a future fiscal year, and reviewed the cost estimates based for all of those decisions. If you will turn your attention to the very last page of this particular item,
It's the last 2 pages.
Last 2 pages, excuse me. It will outline for you from the current fiscal year through the fiscal year 2014-2015, a recommended list of projects for the rest of this fiscal year. And that would be the second column in that particular spreadsheet. These recommendations were first of all discussed at the committee meeting, and then the committee asked staff to price out some of these and come back with further recommendations, and these were submitted to the committee in a non-meeting. We did not have another meeting of the committee, but the fact that we received nothing to the contrary, I believe that this is the recommendation of the committee for your consideration. The only thing that, am I on, Don? Don, am I on? This list will be presented to you again as part of the mid-year budget adjustment, and each of these projects will come back to you for approval by the board of each project as they become ready for bidding. So without any other, basically that's the recommendation of the committee, and we recommend approval of this project list and also the attendant cost estimates. The committee also discussed a
Why don't you try Mrs. Jerring's mic? Maybe that works.
I don't think it's long enough. It won't come. It's not going to come long enough. We're going to get cozy here. The committee also discussed a recommendation made by your general manager for revisions to your budget policy. No, it's the system. It's not the microphone.
Yep.
Yeah. We're back on. The committee also discussed my recommendations for amendments to the budget policy that would, for the first time, include the work of the CIP committee in that project development process, and that's a further agenda item, each one further in your agenda. That's my report, sir.
All right, any discussion before we hear some motions?
We have a community member that wants to speak.
Yes, please.
Sure.
I just saw that really briefly as it reflected Rush Park and the dirt, the estimate for that. Is that encompass what we discussed in the MOU, or is that strictly replacement of dustless dirt?
That's to make the field be multi-size age use.
Does it include hiring the backstop and that kind of a thing, factoring in older play?
We haven't gotten to that level of detail. We've simply gotten cost estimates for redoing the field, much like we did Field 3 at Rossmoor Park.
Well, that's what I was asking. If the line item that I'm seeing there is reflective of what we discussed in the MOU, that's just my question.
To the extent that we have cost estimates for making that field the same as Field 3 at Rossmoor Park, that's what's in this project. It's what's in this budget.
Okay, when we discussed it for the MOU, the discussion was to make it for play for older girls as well.
Correct.
Okay.
That's in there.
Okay, so that is not duplicative of Field 3 at Rossmoor Park then?
In terms of the reconstruction of the field, yes, the cost factors for reconstruction of the field. That cost factor is more than what it costs to do Field 3 at Rossmoor Park.
Okay, I don't want to be dense here, but I want to be sure that I understand that this, when we discussed this with the MOU, we talked about rotating in older girls into that park as well.
That's not a discussion for the CIP committee. The CIP committee is dealing with the fiscal cost of redoing that field. That field will come back to this board as a project recommendation with a full set of specifications for how that field is to be developed. This is just a cost estimate.
No, I understand that.
So as just, maybe this will clarify, as we discussed in the MOU, we committed to bring this up in the CIP committee.
Right.
The CIP committee has said, yes, this is something that we want to see happen. In our budget, we have budgeted currently $35,000 for this project. It has to go out to bid. They have to see what it's going to cover. I can't tell you every single thing. We allocated $35,000, which is more money that was used for Field 3 to do that dirt. So there could be money in there for the backstop and stuff. We don't know what those expenses are going to be until it comes back to us. This is a proposed budget. It could be that it's more expensive to do everything, and we're going to have to reevaluate this.
Okay, so that's just kind of my question.
We did say also
find
that
out how
we weren't
works.
sure if this was going to be, what year this would come into. As I said, I pushed this, and it is part of this year. It could be that it's still a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan, that we can do the field first, and then whatever else comes second or third. But this is a start as we...
Okay, I understand that. I was just trying to get an understanding of how that worked, and if it did, I guess because I wanted to be sure that the intent for as much use as possible was a consideration. If you're saying that it goes out for bid and it comes back at 50 and you decide no, or it comes back at 25, that's fine. I just wanted to get a better understanding of what that involved.
The
And you've
intent is to
explained
actually
it.
be able to,
Okay.
to offload games at Rossmoor Park onto Rush Park.
No, I understand
So
that.
that's
Okay,
what we're
I know
trying
you
to-
explained it. Thank you.
I have a comment I want to make with regards to fiscal year 2012-2013. There's a placeholder for installation of solar panels at Rush Park. It would be my recommendation to postpone the installation of solar panels further down for fiscal years further out. And in place of this project for fiscal year 2012-2013, this board give consideration for fiscal year 2012-2013 to the installation of wall facades at 3 distinct corners for the Rossmoor Shopping Village, given the retraction of Los Alamitos to annex the shopping village, that the area be more clearly designated as jurisdictional area of the RCSD and the community of Rossmoor, and that I would propose that we place a value for that project at this time of $25,000.
I'll second that.
Director Coletta. Hello? Hello? It's on. Can you be more specific? I'm just trying to visualize what it is you're proposing.
Yeah, pony wall, when I mean pony wall, maybe no higher than the desk.
Okay. And where would that be?
Perhaps, and maybe is 4 feet long and a depth of maybe 8 to 10 inches, 12 inches with a brick facade, and to have the Rossmoor black and circle background as we have in
And where would that be?
On these little pony walls at 3 different corners. One would be at Hedwig and Los Al Boulevard, where the Arco gas station is.
Okay.
The other one would be at the corner of Los Al and Catella, right at the corner where the car wash marquee is. It designated it's a car wash, and it's got.
So you'd put you'd put some
Could be a
pony
round,
wall
it could
that-
be, nice.
Is that our property?
No, we would have to go to the owners of.
We have to get an
property.
easement.
You have to get an easement, just like we
Right.
did over here at the
Okay,
corner
and
of
say we
Wallingford.
put a 4-foot wall up saying Rossmoor.
Just the emblem, And the same thing would be, I would propose at Wallingford, but just on the opposite side of.
Where the church is?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Something small. It may not be 25,000. Maybe.
So there's no Rossmoor insignia on the wall there now?
On the Wallingford's wall,
Wallingford side.
facing, it's on the west side
On
of
the home
Wallingford?
property, there's one, but not on the church.
Correct.
Oh, so you want two, Rossmoor?
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you're proposing? Okay, same on the Hedwig, Rossmoor, okay.
Yeah, three of them, yeah. That makes sense.
Don't we have one sitting in the middle,
Well,
though?
if you look at the,
Well, it's Mainway, though, right? I'm thinking, yeah, Mainway is the Rossmoor in the middle, then the wall.
Right.
Hedwig just has double lane.
Well, it has the
Corner.
Hedwig at the corner of LaSalle, and
Yeah.
Hedwig has the brick wall, banners go there, and I think it has the emblem. But there isn't a comparable little pony wall where the Arco gas station is.
Okay, now I understand.
It's a small,
Mr. President, I think that when we discussed this, that you were looking at something like what we have currently just outside the door here for Rush Park and for
Whatever
Rossmoor-
concept comes
Rossmoor
up,
Park,
that's
something
approved,
that,
that's fine.
something that
Branding
has
issue.
higher visibility and
Right.
lit up at night and so on and so forth.
Right.
My question to you, sir, is the solar panels are scheduled for at least consideration in 2012, 2013 with no money allocated for that.
well, can we allocate 25,000 irrespective of the fact the solar panel was TBD cost?
Well, but you'd have to go back to this current fiscal year and substitute a project to get this thing upgraded to this year.
Cut something out that has
Okay, well,
25,000.
is there something we can discuss here?
There's a lot of TBD.
Why are we not allowed to put it into the 2012, 2013 plan?
You can, sir, I'm just saying.
Why do we have to cut something out this year if we don't want to? I mean, there's still
No,
a
I-
excess.
No, but I believe his recommendation was that we substitute a project.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that when we see fiscal year 2012, 2013, that, in 6 months from now, that might be a number, and we would say, okay, we're not going to spend it on the solar panels, we're going to do it on the pony walls. So, I don't know how to approach this. I'm just throwing ideas out there. There is a savings in fiscal year 2011, 2012. where
Does
some
it
money
make
could-
better sense to just say it's just a TBD, cost-wise? Include it in TBD in that way, and we're not having to replace anything?
That makes better sense, because then we'll have a better handle later on as to how much money is really left in that fund. We may not do some of these projects this year if.
Correct.
Okay.
That's fine.
That makes
So I
more
think
sense.
we should add the item and say TBD. So we have two items, solar panels.
No,
And
solar
pony wall.
panels,
We
solar
can't do that.
panels, no, solar panels would stay where they are.
No, I understand that. I'm not disputing that. I'm saying we add another item in addition to the solar panels that are already TBD.
No,
No?
but that's in a different fiscal year. President Coletta wants to move it into this fiscal year, correct?
No, what I initially stated was.
I think so.
Take the solar panels and move it out like 2013, 14, or 14, 15.
Mhm.
And in the place of 2012, 2013, where the solar panels was to be installed, meaning we would look for money, we'd begin to research it. Let's not research that. Let's research, vet out not just the costs, but there is some legal issues with installing a pony wall on private property.
Sure.
So there are a little bit more costs. It may be just a nominal cost, but it takes time to get some understanding of what's entailed. We have to get permission, the contractual documents have to be drawn up, an easement has to be recorded, maybe just $1,000 for that. But, and maybe that 25,000 is too little, maybe that's only 12,000 for all three little facades, I don't know.
Why wouldn't you want to put the TBD just for this year?
That's fine, if I hear somebody wants to push for that, I'm all for it.
Okay, I push for that.
2011, 2000.
Put it in,
I mean, move it up.
A TBD, you can put a TBD anywhere. Let's put it on this year's TBD, and then let's ferret out everything that's needed and what the cost is, and so let's build an understanding by having the TBD now.
That was my understanding.
That makes more sense to me.
All right, let's go, we'll make more sense.
Yes, let's make sense.
So do we need
I would
to
amend my
revise?
motion.
Make a motion to make sense.
I amend the motion. Does someone want to second my amended motion?
I will second your amended.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the amended motion?
Yeah,
Again,
I
just to make sure.
want to hear it verbalized.
We're going to place a new project. We're going to place a new project in this fiscal year, in the second column, for the installation of, what did you call them?
3 pony walls. Pony walls.
Pony
Small
walls.
Rossmoor pony walls.
What, Rossmoor pony walls, okay. I have a visualization of that now. And with a TBD, because we have no idea what it's going to cost, and when and if we do know what it might cost, then we would come back and say, let's rearrange this project list, or let's spend some of the carryover money that's projected for the following year.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the intent of the motion. All in favor of that amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, no more persons opposing it, the motion carries. Now, with regards to the general overall CIP recommendations here, are we all in favor?
I had a question on the safety on the tot lot equipment. We need to be consistent with safety regulations. Are we not consistent currently with
Not with
safety?
not with the new upgraded regulations. We're deficient with both safety and ADA, and we now have some pretty firm cost estimates that will accomplish or will take care of both of those issues.
Oh, okay. Didn't know.
Mr. Burgess, come on up.
Efficient.
Wait, can you please come to the microphone? Sorry.
You got $215,000 total for the year, and there's only 15 that we can see right now. Can we flip back to the previous page? Thank you.
What was that?
I think he just wanted to see the other page.
Wanted to see the whole thing.
I'm sorry, I thought you had a question.
No, he just wants to see.
Okay, if you're going to ask a question, come to the microphone.
Okay. So we're on page 2.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are you seeing what you need to see?
Yeah. Just that first page flips over.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Did you want to go on the next page?
I'm good now.
You're good? Okay.
Mr. Tabawada, do we need to make a motion on this to?
What I need is basically direction on bringing back this project list as amended as part of your mid-year budget adjustment in February.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? No? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries.
No, good.
Now we go to the consent calendar. Does any director wish to remove one or more items on the consent calendar for discussion? Nope. Hearing none, then the consent calendar is 1, 2, and 3. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent calendar is approved. There are no public hearings, no resolutions. Now we go to the regular calendar, and that is H1, the first reading of the restructuring of board policies concerning fiscal and budgetary controls.
Mr. President, members of the board, as I said earlier, this was discussed at the CIP committee without arriving at consensus among the members present at that particular meeting. My purpose in bringing this to you is to, for the first time, place into your budget policy the role of the CIP committee, much like the budget committee, which reviews the preliminary budget. By having this in that budget development policy, it ensures that, at least for Fund 40, that it gets special review by the CIP committee with regard to the vagaries of funding and project lists for that particular fund. Also, since that fund relies solely on influx of monies from Fund 10 or other funds in the budget package, it's also, I think, important that the CIP committee have a full review of that before we submit to the board a preliminary budget. There's another issue that prompted me to bring this to your attention. That is that during this particular fiscal year, after the development of the Fund 40 budget, staff came back to us, to me basically, and said, we've identified these other smaller projects which we would like included within the CIP. And these were projects of lesser amounts and projects which could be accomplished, I felt, within the departmental budgets of your current budget. In other words, if it was a recreation item, it would fit within the capital expenditure line item within the recreation department or the parks department or the Rush Park department, so on and so forth. And I also reviewed what was the expenditure limits imposed on the general manager. Once upon a time in Policy 2000, the general manager was limited to $5,000 expenditures. The purchasing policy was then amended, and in that particular policy, it indicates that the general manager can spend up to $5,000, actually up to $10,000, and report promptly to the board if it exceeds that amount. So there's an inconsistency here with what has been a practice of limiting your general manager to a $5,000 expenditure limit, and also the purchasing policy, which says you can go to $10,000 as long as you notify the board if you exceed it. So what I've presented to you is revisions to your current policy 3020, which includes under 30, 20, 25, and 26 the role of the Public Works CIP Committee and the expenditure limits dealing with placement of smaller projects not to exceed $10,000 and having that is identifying a capital project as having an estimated cost of $10,000 or more and having a 5-year service life as opposed to a $5,000 cost, and then placing those smaller projects into departmental budgets. That's one recommendation. In your policy 3021, budgetary control, I only included that just to give you the way in which you control your budget, but also to eliminate from 302133, which is on page 94, the elimination of the .70 when it references policy 2000. And the reason for that is that as you amend one policy and categorize it to a specific subset like .70, and you change this policy, then generally, it doesn't tie back to another policy because that policy didn't move and this one did. So that's a second recommendation. And then I've included in your package then the purchasing policy under 305020, which sets the limits on expenditures, where it says the general manager shall report promptly to the board any expenditure for equipment, supplies, or contract services that exceeds $5,000. Any contract for goods or services totaling $10,000 or more in any 1 year or in any amendment or extension thereto involving a change of more than $10,000 shall be subject to board review and approval. So I believe the recommendation that I'm making with regard to 3020, which is budget preparation and adoption, that this is more consistent with the rest of your policies, and I stand ready to answer your questions.
All right, so this is a first reading of 3020 and revision of 3021. So we don't need to have a formal motion, but if any comments want to be made, changes or proposals, this would be a time, or we could hold off till next time, the second reading. That'd be correct, Mr. Tabwater?
Yes, sir.
Just for the record, the reason we couldn't come up with consensus is because I couldn't figure out what benefit we were actually getting by making these changes, and I still actually don't see the benefit. I think that having the $5,000 has worked, and it gives us oversight and a better system, and it's something that I think is, we have the fiduciary responsibility for the community, and I don't see how we're making a better governing situation by making these changes. So that was my point, and I did share that with the committee and Mr. Tabawada, but I wanted him to bring it to the board for conversation. I'm just one voice. Maybe there's other thoughts out there.
Who's the other board member on there?
I'm the other board member. Yeah, he and I were at odds over that. I thought that Henry needed the flexibility, and that giving the extra $5,000 in this economy was prudent in that it would allow him to be able to, in like some kind of an emergency or where we couldn't vote on something immediately, that he could take care of an issue and he'd bring it back to the board saying this is what I did, and that he would not abuse that authority. in so doing that.
What about the other?
My only comment is if we have a policy for how he handles everyday purchasing for an annual budget, but then we have a different set of thresholds for capital improvement, I don't understand why we'd have two different thresholds.
Yeah, I don't think we should have.
Actually, Mr. President, members of the board, there is no threshold for a capital project because it hasn't been included as part of your policy. It's been a practice to limit it to $5,000, but there's certainly nothing in your policy documents that preclude $10,000. There is a restriction on the use of your credit card for $5,000, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But what I'm suggesting is that there are purchases that become necessary at a moment in time. I'll give you an example. The restrooms at Rossmoor Park were vandalized. There was some very, very nasty stuff carved into those panels. I gave orders to our park superintendent to immediately go and cover up as much as he could of what was written on those, and to immediately order new panels to be substituted for those that can't be repaired. There's no way you can hide it sufficiently and have it look like a decent facility. I doubt that that particular expenditure is going to exceed $5,000, but if it does, and it's in a departmental budget, I'd like to have the ability to do that without coming to the board meeting and saying, Mother, can I please spend this money for this expenditure? It's not a capital project. It's simply a capital expenditure in a departmental budget. So if this board is willing, then I will do my best to bring back to you policies that are consistent for both for purchasing, budgetary control, and so forth. This is the first step.
So just a couple other comments. I don't think, Ron, that we can make policies based on trust, right? Henry does a great job, and we do trust that he governs and works for our community in the best possible way. He's not going to be here forever. I mean, these policies are set for us to make sure that our community is being run in the way that it's supposed to be run. So the fact that we trust him shouldn't make any, in my opinion, shouldn't have any weight on whether this is a policy we should enforce or change or not. The other thing I also have a differing, I guess, opinion on is that I think that there's, we have an operational budget and there's capital expenses, and I think that those two things need to remain separate. And capital improvements, whether they be to fix or something like that, I don't think go into an operational budget. I think there are maintenance costs that go into an operational and upkeep and things like that, but if there's a capital project that is not an operational expense, I think you start mixing those two budgets. It's not, it doesn't keep it as clear and clean as I think it should be.
Mr. Kayla, what's your view?
I had no comment.
So are you for the revisions?
This is
There's no right or wrong answer.
This is like one of those very like gray areas,
I
and I'm seeing both sides. Because, to listen to you, Mr. Talbot, about the replacement of a vandalized property or an emergency purchase, when I look at a capital improvement project, I think of that and I define that there's planning involved, that there's thought, and I've budgeted for that, and I don't know how I budget for a exception. I mean, that seems to be an operational issue, and that's just the fund. So I'm a little unclear on that. And then some of this language, I mean, there's some contingencies here with an estimated cost of $10,000 or over, and have a 5-year service life. Well, we can't. I mean, there's no guarantees that something's going to have a 5-year service life. So I hear what you're saying about how you may need more than $5,000 to operate to go fix something. I don't know if this is the mechanism to give you that flexibility. I don't know, I don't know what that is, but I don't know if this is the right
Well,
path to take.
right now, there's nothing that defines a capital project in your policy. Nothing.
Yeah.
And so what I'm suggesting is.
See the definition here. That's
That's
good.
what I'm giving you. And you can modify that definition if you like, but if you do so, then you need to get your other policies in line and make them all be consistent. Right now,
So, Director Rips, help me. Your hesitancy to accept this is not the fact that we don't have a definition of capital projects. You're okay. I mean, you like that. It's just I don't
Well,
understand.
it would be great, I guess, if we do, define our capital projects, but right now, we have this $5,000 threshold, which I actually think is working for our community. And if there was, I'm just not sure I'm comfortable with raising it. And that was my first initial hesitation when we had our meeting and we had our conversation back as the CIP committee. I do think there is a difference between capital improvements and operational. And
It seems like we're mixing two different things here. It's like there's capital improvement policy that I think we need to define.
Mr. Tabuada, in one of his examples, said, if there's something that needs to be an improvement or capital expense, whatever, could go into the department budget, and that is.
But an emergency fix doesn't say that.
But he said even purchase something. It wasn't an emergency fix. They had to purchase something, or they wanted.
So just raising the ability to purchase something without coming to the board from 5 to 10,000. Is that basically what that is?
Right, and I'm not sure. I mean, I'm one voice, and it just was something that didn't sit well with me in the meeting, and I didn't say, "Hey, let's not bring it to the board." But I wasn't sure. I'm not sure what the benefit is. What benefit? I understand it might make life for Mr. Tabuada a little easier, but I don't know at the end of the day if that's the right decision in this specific situation.
Well, can we bifurcate the issue?
Yeah.
You don't have a $5,000 threshold. It does not exist. It's a practice. Now,
Okay.
What I'm asking for, three things. One, the role of the CIP committee.
Right.
Two, a definition of a capital project. And three, the threshold for a capital project.
Yeah.
My sentiment is, I think the first two items are important to get a definition. But I think the threshold for a capital improvement project, I'm comfortable with $5,000, and I'm siding with you. I think that's a number that resonates in everybody's mind. We've been practicing with that for a while. That's my view.
What about your policy, though, that says that up to 10,000 doesn't require board approval?
I'm not agreeing with that. I personally don't agree with that.
Well, it is your policy.
I'm sorry?
It is your policy.
That's this point, there's a disconnect.
Yeah, well, then that means to be corrected.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting.
That's what it sounds like.
I'm suggesting, I don't know if.
Correct that one back to 5 as opposed to putting this one at 10.
This is a first reading,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
And it's a good thing that it's a first reading. I think we have some homework to do.
Correct.
This is basically, this isn't, like, as you said, Jeff, this is not a Henry Tabuada issue. This is a general manager, how you do your transaction, and really at what point do we need to be brought into the loop for approval. And we have to kind of come together with what is that policy, because I don't think it's clear in here, and I think we have some homework to do.
If you go to 3050, it's pretty cut and dried. That's like that's like about 5 pages down. It's pretty, it's not nebulous. It's pretty, I mean,
30, 20, 50? Which one are you looking at?
3050. So you go to 3050-20, 3050-10, 3050-30, 3050-40, 3050-50, et cetera. I mean, this page, it's pretty, it's not gray. I mean, it spells out.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you go look at 3050-20, for instance, it says that the general manager shall report promptly to the board any expenditure, blah, 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 that exceeds $5,000. And then in the very next sentence, it says, any contract for goods or services totaling $10,000 or more shall be subject to the board review and approval. So I guess it's saying that between that 5 and the 10,000, you have to go tell us, but you don't have to get approval to do it. I'm just...
Director, I didn't write this policy, so I'm not sure what people had in mind when this was...
I think this
Understood.
I like reading that properly?
Yeah, you're reading it
So-
fine.
I would propose that as a first reading, there's obviously a disagreement as to what we want to do. I'm hearing I'm hearing 3 people that said they'd like to see a $5,000 limit. And I'm reading that to interpret the 30/50,
Maybe changes all around.
30/50/20 as well.
Right.
Well, I think, as I just said, I think 30/50/20, there's the 3 brackets. There's that 5,000 and under to where the general manager can make the game time decision without having to tell anybody. There's the second bracket where it's 5,000, 10,000. He can still make the decision, but he has to inform the board. And then 10,000 up is where it's board approval. So we have those 3 different buckets now.
Yeah, but 30/50 is current policy.
Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so the question is, do we want to revise 30/50/20?
Right.
Current policy.
Right, I think what you're saying is that take out that second bucket, that the general manager is not authorized to make expenditures without board approval, anything above 5,000. In effect, I'm just following this through, we would be restricting the general manager's powers that he currently enjoys, taking it from 10,000 to 5,000 without getting board approval. And so then I think if we proceed down that path, we have to look at what type of, how does that impact the ability to execute daily work, right?
I'm going to be the contrarian here, just because I see that this was adopted December 9th, 2003.
Well, it's amended.
So, pardon?
Well, that was the first adoption.
Okay, that was adopted. It was last amended in 2007. So since 2007, this current purchasing policy has, I would think, worked. And so now we want to go after the fact and not just take his recommendations of trying to kind of tie them together and revise this policy that I don't think anyone's seen any issue with until today.
Right, yeah, I'm just
being contrarian here.
I'm thinking on why are we going back and restricting when nobody's had any issues with it?
We haven't had an
currently?
issue since 2007, obviously. So now he's asking to have that same ability to do his job or any future general manager's job. I'm just putting out a different point of view. And
I guess the question is, Mr. Tabuada, how many purchases of over $5,000 have you done without the board's prior commitment, approval?
That I'm aware of, I don't think I've had any. But what I have done is parceled out expenditures so that they're under 5,000, so I don't have to come to you and ask permission to buy trash cans.
But I appreciate that, but we've been operating on a $5,000 threshold. Whether this is written one way or that's contradictory or whatever, we have been operating under the 5,000, and Mr. Tabuada has been operating under the 5,000.
But he just opened Pandora's box. He just
opened
said
it a long time ago, actually.
Broken the rule.
But no, what he just said right now is he kind of does some creative accounting to adjust things to keep it under 5,000, which kind of undermines the whole reason of having.
I guess my point is that you can't do anything for less than 5,000. There's not a whole lot you can get for less than 5,000. And to the extent that we can wait for a board meeting to bring it to you, amend Fund 40 budgets to account for it, call a CIP committee meeting to deal with it, it's just bureaucracy in my mind.
Well, I think the board is willing and has a practice of waiving their nominal stipend to convene more than once during the month, and particularly if it's just like on one item. I don't recall anyone ever saying, well, where's my $100 stipend just to meet?
Well, it's not just a stipend, it's the board time, or the staff time required to call the meeting, staff to be present to do it.
Of course.
There's trade-offs no matter what you do. And all I'm suggesting is that $10,000 does not break the bank, nor does it create any, how do I say it, lack of discretion on the part of a general manager to manage your organization with $1 million budget.
I look at 30, 25, 26, and I'm not, can somebody help me to find the language that says that we're giving the general manager the ability to make a unilateral buying decision of $10,000 or more. I'm just saying that it's defining what a capital improvement project is. That would go into this CIP committee that still has to go back in front of the board to be approved or not approved. I'm not seeing where this says he has the green light to go spend money. I'm just seeing basically a definition here. I mean, help me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to expand his powers to give him, a carte blanche to buy random stuff, but I'm not seeing where that expands his powers.
If you would turn to page 74 at the bottom, 74 of 102.
Sorry, which page would we go?
Wait a minute.
74?
Page 74 of 102, at the very bottom.
7-4, okay. I don't have it.
Okay, so that's in a different section, okay.
Yeah.
They're numbered sequentially.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
All right.
All right, if you come down to, this is the Fund 10 General Fund, and it's Department 10 Administration. You come down past contract services at 50, is that 6010?
Yeah.
You see capital expenditures, $4,000.
Yep.
In that departmental budget. If you go to page 77, you have Department, Fund 10, Department 20, Recreation. Down near the bottom at 6010, you have capital expenditures, $1,000. If you go to the next page, you have the Montecito Center, Department 40. At the mid-level of the page, capital expenditures, $500. So all I'm saying to you is you do have capital expenditures within your departmental budgets already, just a question of how much money I put in them. And all I'm saying to you is that when we want to buy trash cans and it's over $5,000, we need trash cans. If we, and I don't think that the board needs to amend Fund 40 to include an expenditure for trash cans. I'm differentiating between an operational departmental budget.
Yeah, we have trash cans in Fund 40.
Because we didn't arrive, I put them in there because we didn't arrive at a conclusion regarding the limits on a capital project.
So then, I'm just following this through. This goes into play, capital project would be anything 10,000 or over, 5-year life. If I go back to this budget, if this policy 3020.25 was in play, this capital expenditure budget of $4,000, say on page 74, that line item would not exist, and we would have to spell out what that would be, right?
No, because those capital expenditures in departmental budgets are there to take into account those things which can't be accounted for, like those panels for the bathrooms that
The
need
rainy
to be
day
replaced.
fund.
They are, absolutely.
That's right.
So we would keep that, okay.
It's just not one that would have.
And
So
I'm
that
saying
would
if
not be entitled a capital improvement project, that's just a capital expenditure, okay. Okay. So what's the motion again?
I don't think
There isn't one.
there's no motion.
There's just basically,
So this is just a first reading, though?
Yes.
That's right.
So the policy says first reading, second
it's going to
reading,
come back
vote.
exactly
So a second reading would be in January, a vote would be in February?
January.
No,
Next month.
be January.
It'll be a second reading and then a vote after that?
So unless there's a revision right now, what you'll see in January is identical language, and it'll come up for an up or down vote.
And then there could be either a
Or
yay,
another-
nay.
yeah.
Nay could be a revised verbiage, okay.
That's exactly
I think
right.
what we're seeing here is I need to let this resonate with us a bit and to think it out a little bit and take back all the discussion and approach this on the second week of January. Because it was going to come back anyway.
It is.
So let us.
Well, I make a motion to accept it as it stands, right? And then
You can make that.
and then we go to the 2nd of January, where we could still make
We don't do anything
revisions.
until.
10th of January.
Yeah.
What's that?
So we don't do anything until there's a second.
Well, I mean, that would be the policy. That would be the
Your
motion.
presumption that there'd be a second, right?
Yeah, I'm just, if it gets seconded.
It's going to come back, Mr. Kaler.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to make the motion.
Scratch that motion. I retract that from the record.
Yeah, save your bullet.
It seems
I'm
to me
putting
there
it back
has
in
to
the
be
gun.
some sort of conversation at some point about this
Right.
$10,000, $5,000, if we want to go consistent to the 10 or consistent to the 5.
Yes.
And that,
I'm leaning that way, but I'm
That-
hearing that there's some people that are believing that 10,000 is good. And so for me, I can wait until January 2nd to give this a second thought. Maybe I may view it differently, and I may be steadfast to my thought. But I'm not ready tonight to join any motion for a revision personally. I don't, if someone else wants to, that's
I'm not,
fine.
I'm just, conversation.
I'm just glad we're having the discussion.
Yeah,
And now we
it's
all
a-
know
it's a
that
good
we have to give
discussion.
it more
We-
thought.
we
We
do.
need to be a little more thoughtful on
We
this,
do,
that's all.
and it's late.
Okay.
This is a very tedious thing, and we have to give thought to what we're talking about. And it's 11 o'clock, and I'm not one to say we need to leave here, but I think we lost our energy and passion. So we'll let this come back, Mr. Townwater? Is that
Sure.
okay?
Yep.
And now general manager items.
I have one.
Okay.
We went live with our website yesterday.
All right.
I think that Liz and Bray IT did a marvelous job of creating this new website for us. It looks like a website that any other agency would look at and say, this is what the current thinking and the current configuration for a website is. It has so many more pieces of information there that as you drop down through each of your menus, you can get information that was not possible within the previous website. It isn't finished. There's areas there for addition of our board policies, which we should include in there. There's any number of things that will improve it as you use it and as we receive your comments regarding your use of it and the public's use of it, so that we can refine it and make it even more superior than it already is. And so I'm very pleased to make that announcement and to thank the board for allowing us to spend the money to do it. It was over $5,000 and we got board approval.
I think we got our money's worth.
Huh?
We got our money's worth on that.
I think we did. And as I said, Liz managed this project all on her own. I only saw it after it was done, so it was good.
Great
Thank
job.
you, Liz.
Thank you.
A lot of creativity there. Board member items.
Is it my turn?
Yes, sir.
It's in my turn.
Don't mind if I do. Okay, so I'll try to be brief, but it's not going to happen. So I'm going to file this. I've got like 2 points under the heading. What's that movie in the late 70s? Was it called Network? Where like the famous line, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore." Yeah. So my first comment is really directed to Supervisor Morlock, and you're probably not going to be watching this, and it's not going to be taped because out of the 125 people that were here earlier, 4 are left. But I really urge you to really take to heart the critique of the financial analysis that the county, your organization, created the numbers and gave to the public. That really illuminated the following, and this has been spoken about, but really, we're a donor as opposed to an expense to the county, and that really to me, highlights and emphasizes just how much of a fraud, a blatant liar, a crook, and a hypocrite you really are. You know, as a CPA who prides himself on fiscal prudence, you are absolutely 100% aware of these shenanigans, and you have purposely screwed over the same people that have supported you in the past. So really shame on you, Supervisor Morlock. I'm disgusted by your actions, and I'm real curious to see how you respond to these latest figures that your own agency has put out. So this will be interesting to once again hear your non-comment on these numbers and to see how you manage to magically spin this. It's just going to be curious, and if you have any courage and any integrity, then you will issue an immediate apology and a retraction for your personal attacks on this board, on our community, and I'm not going to hold my breath that you'll be doing that anytime soon. The other point, mad as hell, I'm not going to take it any more, is our friendly neighbors south of us, the city of Seal Beach, who once again demonstrate their complete lack of respect for our community and the impact that they make on us. You know, it's the old NIMBY principle, not in my backyard, and I'm just disgusted by your actions and your lack of community input. You know what they say about karma, right? So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Beyond that, I would like to thank, trying to be positive now, I'd really like to thank and I really commend the Los Al City Council for seeing the light and backing off of their annexation campaign. I understand that was a very difficult decision to reach, but that was very, very, very wise, and I really commend you on taking the proper action at the end of the day. So good job there. And lastly, I just want to wish everybody in the room that's left and who's watching this a great holiday season. And if you drink, please don't drive. And please be safe, have fun, and we'll definitely see everybody in 2012. That's all I have.
How do I follow that impassioned speech?
Go ahead.
Well, anyway, I just have a couple things. I want to thank the community for coming out in, especially Brenda Gorman, on the issue of all the activities that are going on basically in our backyard, even though it is Seal Beach. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on, you know, what was said or not said, but one thing, it's like we will try to have a meeting, and I know it's Henry Tabuada is going to look into what it's going to take in terms of the timing and the television, but I believe there's going to be another committee that perhaps is formed in addition to some of the others that will be joining together at whatever meeting it is. And I'd just like to say that if we could have two board members on the committee, I would volunteer to be one of them. So just for the record, I'd like to say that. And secondly, I want to once again mention the activity report. How was that phrased? The case study analysis, I guess it was, from Harvey M. Rose. That illuminated a lot of data that I felt was sort of along the lines of what I expected to find. And I think that's going to be a great benefit to us going forward in terms of our dealing with the county. So I'm very happy about that. Next, I just want to mention that based on the news reports of an elderly lady on Weatherby being attacked in the community a couple weeks ago. It's been all over the news, so I'm sure the whole community is aware of that. But and as strong and as good a job as she did in identifying the suspects it's like, and this sort of goes hand in hand, in my opinion, with the activities that are going on, with some of the new shops and the added traffic around here, that I think that's adding to the crime in our community, plus the holidays where people are, you know, in a more joyous mood, have a lot of holiday packages and the like. I'm basically saying that you have to be very careful this time of year, and especially in these times in Rossmoor, because I don't think the community is the safe area that it used to be. So we have to be very vigilant, especially during the holidays. Next, I just want to wish our illustrious general manager a safe trip to the land of the ice. Make sure you stay safe, and I promise not to call you any more than 3 or 4 times a week while you're gone. And lastly, I just want to wish everyone in the community a safe and healthy holiday season, and that's all I have.
I don't think I can add too much from the previous 2 directors, but I do want to wish everybody a very happy and healthy holiday season and a happy new year. Let you do the rest.
I want to thank all the people who came out here tonight, because obviously Rossmoorians, as I called everyone today, are very passionate about their property, about their community, and trying to preserve the whole reason why we moved here. The concept of the super city, I think if people wanted to move to a super city, they would have moved to Huntington Beach. People are here by choice. And coming out here, especially with a younger teenager who came in here, getting involved in the process and being heard, I think that's very cool. And I welcome more teenagers and people of all ages to come here and speak your mind when you have the access. I also want to thank Gary Miller for stepping into the Lion's Den. We had a Seal Beach councilman who actually, you know, braved it to come here on an invite and actually talk and wasn't lynched. So thank you, Gary, for showing up here. At a certain point during the public comment, Bernard came up and said that we need to fight the real war, and that, you know, hiring consultants, hiring statisticians and stuff, it's the wrong thing. What we need is strategy. Well, since he brought up war, I'm going to quote Sun Tzu from the author of The Art of War. And his first rule number 1 of war is if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you're going to win most of your wars. If you know yourself and not your enemy, you're going to lose at least 50%. And I'm paraphrasing, by the way. And if lastly, you don't know who yourself is and you don't know who your enemy is, you're going to lose every time. So the prudence that I believe our board has done with the counsel of our general manager of gathering facts so we know what's in front of us has actually been the wise thing to do. And we do recognize that it is a war, and I can personally say that we're here to help fight. It's not about jurisdiction, it's about preserving our community, and I'm all for that. Lastly, because Gary Miller did come here, and what other people have said about the owner of the shops of, at the shops of Rossmoor, is that Seal Beach application or paperwork that they submitted on their housing elements actually has a false out-and-out lie. And this needs to become public. When you have the business owner telling people flat out she is not on board, but in their application she brings that up, to me that's almost criminal. And I'm just going to call it out as that. So I think whoever commissioner who lied on that, I think their city council should take them to task and do their own inquiry to see if there's impropriety there and if there should be disciplinary actions for submitting to the state of California a false document. And lastly, everyone have a great holiday, be safe, and just love on your friends and neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, do you have any interest at all in assisting Mr. Casey on that ad hoc?
I would love to help Mr. Casey.
That's a very kind and
I appreciate
generous gesture, and I think the community would appreciate your energy, and you have taken some time to vet this up more than some others on this board, and I would really relish having you a part of Mr. Casey's team and see what you guys can do. You guys will be chairing the meeting. Right. If it is televised or not, you guys will chair the meeting.
No problem.
the two of you. And it'll be at 6 o'clock, and hopefully we'll have a packed room. And Channel 3 will be here, hopefully. And we'll get some traction, make some progress between now and then and that particular evening. Lastly, Mr.
President, just a question before it escapes me. What is the name of this ad hoc committee? Because we have to post it for the two members.
I think it was Jeffrey Rips that, didn't you give it a name, or am I mistaken?
I did not.
You guys can
See?
give it a name tonight. Give it a name.
Oh, my gosh.
It's an ad hoc committee of the RCSD to do what? To join with the RHA is what it was planned to do in the RPC. And so I presume the same process has been in the past, 2 from each entity.
Correct.
Would chair the meeting. The 6 of you would sit up here and chair the meeting. You'd set up an agenda.
And the first topic of that meeting is to create a name.
Well, it's got to be posted.
Has to be posted, okay.
Was it the Rossmoor Center Action Committee?
Shops of Rossmoor.
Action Committee?
Shops
It
of
would be the,
Shops
it would
of
be the
Rossmoor?
shops, because, yeah, don't want to say the wrong Rossmoor name. It's used so freely.
Rossmoor Shopping Villages North, and this is
This
the
is
Rossmoor Shopping
this is
Center.
called the Shops at Rossmoor.
I believe so.
Yeah, so this is the Shops at Rossmoor
Committee.
Committee. There you have it.
Ad hoc committee.
Ad hoc committee, thank you.
Is that sufficient for now?
That's a working title for now.
Okay, and then we've already alluded to it, but just to be emphatic, I would ask Mr. Tabata before you depart on Friday, if at all possible, to craft a letter to carry the critique by Mr. Brousseau and the case study to each supervisor of the County of Orange, so that they too get the benefit of not just seeing the November 29th letter where we're requesting data, but our critique of the case study that they didn't necessarily approve, but LAFCO did.
Actually, LAFCO never did approve that study.
Okay.
It was never agendized as an action item for their commission.
So this was something the executive officer of LAFCO directed based upon the expenditure authority she had?
Correct.
I'll let everyone see, you know, as the Board of Supervisors, see what that person has commissioned on our taxpayer dollars. It's
Got
not
it.
her money, it's our money.
Got it.
All of our money. So, and it's basically useful to line the bottom of the cage. Short of that, anyone have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Good night.